How are you feeling? How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you?
That's difficult to answer.
I'm not clear. How is it that playing the piano for people has eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital?
That's difficult to answer.
is the end. There's a noise inside my head of crying people facing death. Is this the end? Is this the end? I'm burning in the stone. There's no place to hide. I'm burning in the stone. This is the final time. What have we done to the world? What have we done to the world? I'm burning in the stone. There's no place to hide. I'm burning in the stone. This is the final
Hey everyone, what's going on? Happy Tuesday. Can I complain about something and just address something before we get into the main topic today? Well, people are filing in. I've been on YouTube long enough to know that anytime I go live, I have to wait like several additional. So I have to play the countdown because the countdown gives the time for notifications to go out and then people come in. And then I have to kind of waste several additional minutes more of time because people are still filtering in. Can we just talk about this comment that I just got on my YouTube channel that you guys can't see because I'm looking at it on my phone? We are going to be talking about the whites only community today. We're going to be watching a bunch of video about the whites only community. We are going to be doing that. That's going to be the majority of our show. I just want to address, and this is the reason I'm talking about this, is it's a pretty typical comment I get from conservatives who think, and you already know where this is going, right? This is a pretty typical comment that I get from conservatives who think that they're helping, but they're actually just demonstrating that they have no fuck off idea what I'm doing. So I'm not going to read the whole comment because it's very, very long. I don't know if you guys, it won't adjust. The camera won't adjust. It's a very long comment. It's the size of my phone. If you want to grow your channel, then you need to be nicer to people and you need to find other people to collaborate with. And have you reached out to Glenn Beck about this? Because I'm sure that Glenn Beck would be interested in your content and you're just way too mean to people on the internet. So if you want to grow your channel, you have to be nicer to people on the internet. Do you guys know that I have Glenn Beck's private email address that some people on the Blaze staff don't even have? Do you guys know that that's actually a real thing? I'm not going to say I've spammed Glenn Beck's private email address or anything because I haven't. But in 2020, Glenn Beck actually gave me his private email address that people on his own staff didn't have access to. Do you guys know how many times I sent this stuff that I cover from the left to the Blaze and to Glenn Beck specifically? And let me tell you about the last time I ever tried to get them to cover something. I literally sent them a list that I got from like a group or an organization that was working with non-binary children. This was years ago. And I sent them a list saying, here is every single book the grooming lobby is using to reach kids in school. I have like a 3-page fucking list of every book they were using at the time. Do you know what I heard back from them? can you explain to us why our audience would be interested in this? I'm like, this was during the time period where they were covering grooming in schools all the time. And I was like, here are all the books that they're using to groom the kids in school. And they were like, I just don't know why people would be interested in this. I also, when I went undercover at the reproductive justice conference, you know how conservatives are always screaming about abortion rights activists? I gave them all the stuff from the abortion conference that I went undercover at. And they were like, we don't think our audience is going to be interested in this. And this is my experience with dealing with conservatives, is I literally give them everything. And I'm like, here's all this amazing footage of the left. Do you guys want to tell your audience about this? And they're like, nah, we don't really think it's important. And then conservatives come in my chat and they're like, I just don't know why you're doing this. And I don't know why you're just not nice to everyone. You know why I'm not nice to everyone? Because I don't want an audience that is made up of ridiculous low IQ retards. You want to know why I'm not nicer to everyone? Because conservatives have gotten the impression somehow on the internet that it is the job of content creators to kiss their asses, to force them to talk about things that they claim to care about. And you know what? I retired from this a long time ago, conservatives. I retired from kissing the asses of conservatives. We're talking about 4 years ago now. I no longer care if you guys want to be in my audience. And I've said this a million times. My audience is not for everyone. I don't want everyone here. I don't want to appeal to everyone on the internet. Do you want to know what I would do if I wanted to appeal to everyone on the internet? I would be spending a lot more time in the gym. I would be showing off my tits. I would be saying, I just don't understand why the left is non-binary. Can someone please explain to me what the left thinks a woman is? I would be doing all this stupid clickbait shit that appeals to conservatives' low IQ sensibilities. That is exactly what I would be doing if I wanted to appeal to everyone on the internet. This is not an inclusive community. This is an exclusive community. We don't mind kicking people the F out. Yeah, now everyone's like, why don't you show your tits, Karlyn? Now everyone's like, Karlyn, why don't you just show your tits? Yeah, just do that. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. You remember when conservatives were trying to... Well, this one I love, because for years and years and years, conservatives were like, you've got a stupid haircut. Grow out your hair. You've got a stupid haircut. Grow out your hair. And then I grow out my hair and they start complaining about that. Do you guys know there are conservatives on the internet? They're like, I can't believe Karlyn grew out her hair. She's just trying to disguise how fat she is. And it's just like... Do you retards really think I want to include you in my community? You complain about everything. You want everyone to kiss your ass. The only thing that you care about is hearing the talking points that you crave over and over and over and over and over again. No. I would not grow my community with those types of people for any amount of money in the world. I don't give a fuck. My sanity is more important than appealing to conservatives who just want their asses kissed on the internet. That's how I feel about that. Every time I get a comment about that, I'm like, man, yeah, you guys just want to see my tits. It's fine. It's not enough that I don't wear a bra. It's like, you guys just want and want and want. You guys probably want me to. You want me to wear like a push-up one? My God. Yeah, you're like, Karlyn, what is that? You know what? My tits do look good. I'm not even gonna front. I don't have kids, so they are still... I'm just saying. Yeah, well, maybe I did back in the day. Maybe I did. Luckily, I don't have a septum. I don't have any of my piercings anymore. I used to have my nose pierced. I used to have my lip pierced. I used to have my eyebrow pierced. I still have my industrials in my ears. I still have my plugs in my ears. I've never taken those out, but anyway, hey guys, welcome to the show. JR Arizona says, is whiteness is capitalism an international concept? So that's actually a good question, because we are going to be talking today. Actually, let me get this up. That is actually a good question. Is the whole whiteness is capitalism thing, is that an international concept? That's a great question. I'm going to answer that, but I need to get something up here first. Okay. So today we are going to be watching, just because I'm kind of curious about it. I'm not having kids. No, it's not going to happen. People are like, have kids, fight leftists. No. I promise you, I am far more effective fighting leftists without children than I would be with children. I promise you. Anyway, can you please see a tit clap? Well, Sophie has bigger tits than I do, so, it is what it is. Anyway, so there's this whites only community that's been getting a lot of press lately. And so I'm kind of just curious about it. I've been seeing some clips on Twitter about it, and I want to just like make sure I'm actually listening to things and taking in all the information. Now, for people who don't know, so obviously a thing I say a lot on my channel is whiteness means capitalism, whiteness means capitalism, whiteness means capitalism, because to the left, and the left is primarily what I cover, to the left, whiteness is not actually about skin color. Whiteness is a reference to who owns the power structure. It is a reference to the bourgeois private property owner. It is a reference to the capitalist class. It is not a reference to individualism. You got to remember, leftists are collectivists. They don't see people as individual. So every time they say whiteness, white supremacy, racism, they're not actually referring to skin color. They're referring to the system that upholds racism. That means capitalism. They believe that that capitalism, which is defined as private property ownership, created slavery, which is the private property being people that are owned by other people. You had the bourgeois, quote unquote, white people. When they called them white, it wasn't because of their skin color. It literally meant people who did not work in the sun. And I have the left on video saying this. It was a reference to the ownership class. I also have the left on video saying many, many times, Black people can be white too. This isn't about skin color. This is about capitalism. It's about the structure that upholds racial disparities and all that stuff. So people are confused a lot of the times when they have been consuming primarily right-wing content, because for them, of course, they think it means skin color. And if you guys don't believe me, I'm not going to go into the whole thing why whiteness means capitalism today, but I did actually write a book about this. It was an accidental book that I wrote at the beginning of the year called A Brief History of Racism, in which I basically started at the invention of the term racism, which happened in 1902, and tracked the development and the evolution of the term racism all up through modern day. And you can actually hear from the even like the civil rights activists in the 60s and 70s. They're talking about it being a system. They're talking about it being capitalism. I mean, racism as a term was really popularized by was it Trotsky? I'm pretty sure it was Trotsky. I'm remembering off the top of my head. It was some big Bolshevik person that wrote a whole book about racism, essentially. But they weren't talking again about skin color. They were talking about the overall system. They were talking about trying to overthrow capitalism to implement communism. You can find all the quotes in this book. It is a really quick read. It's a really short book. It's called, again, A Brief History of Racism. So I understand why JR Arizona over on Rumble is saying, is whiteness means capitalism an international concept? Not really. When I'm talking about whiteness meaning capitalism, it's kind of exclusive to America, because this is how American social justice advocates have defined it. They defined it around the import of slaves to America. And so it is a rather American concept. If you look, for example, in South Africa, when you see all those crazy people in South Africa that are calling for the killing of white people, they're actually talking about skin color. But people, again, have to remember, this is not an apples to apples comparison. America, thankfully, is not South Africa, and South Africa is not America. So we have to look at these things in context. Now, of course, you look at other kind of like European countries like the UK or places like that, Canada actually too. The whiteness means capitalism thing does apply in those more in those countries that have that type of socialist evolution. But if you're looking at like the African continent, no, they do actually mean skin color when we're talking about that. So we have to be nuanced about this stuff, and we have to really look for the context in which it's being said in. Okay. So that's what I'm going to say about the left for today. Yeah, it was an accident. It was actually, and I was like, this is just an interesting question. And I ended up writing a book about it just because I was interested in the question. However, I do understand now. So personally, and I think this is probably because I have been attacked by white identitarians like all over the internet for years and years and years. The worst cancellation I ever I ever had to deal with was weeks and weeks and weeks of being attacked by this no white guilt asshole. His name is Jason Kana and his community. And this asshole was doing all sorts of sketchy shit with trying to send his community into critical race theory groups. This was back in 2021. It was a long time ago. And basically what they were trying to do was to convince the parents in the school districts that were trying to get CRT out of it at the time. This was before people really understood what critical race theory was. Like, they were trying to convince them that it was all about skin color. And I was sitting there going, this has nothing to do with skin color. You guys are banning the wrong thing. And by the way, I was right about that, because then all these states wrote these anti-CRT laws around skin color. And that's not actually how the left teaches this stuff, because what they're teaching has nothing to do with skin color. So conservative fail yet again on that one. But the thing of it is I do have history with some of these white identitarian groups, and it makes me really kind of reticent to even get involved in the race talk, because they have actually put me through more hell than pretty much any other group on the internet. And it's not even close. And of course, they call me Jewish all the time. I'm not Jewish. I have exactly 0% Ashkenazi in me. I am French and Irish and English, and that is pretty much it. Maybe a little Portuguese thrown in, I guess. I don't even really know. But I know I'm French and Irish and English as a majority. And I know I have 0 Jew, but these people call me Jews all the fucking time. And they, generally speaking, are toxic assholes on the internet. Now, I have recently started to interact with some people who are really into the race question, who, as it turns out, are not toxic assholes. Yeah, I've been openly threatened by these people on multiple occasions for trying to explain accurately what the left believes, because there is some disconnect between the toxic assholes that engage in this race stuff and them being able to wrap their heads around like what the left actually believes. Even when you show them videos of it, they will threaten you openly, they will dox you, they will call you Jewish all over the internet, they will lie about you and smear you and all this stuff. They do all the things that the typical Christians do, and I do actually believe this is more of a Christian problem than anything else. However, I will say this. I have recently started to interact in these CQ spaces, these Christian question spaces, with people who are really into this race question, but they aren't actually treating me like toxic assholes. And because I've been interacting with people in this space for a while. This is not a new thing. I mean, probably like the last 2 years or so. So this is not even a recent thing that I've been interacting with these people. But in interacting with some of them that are not toxic assholes, I've actually begun to understand what their point of view is, because I've actually been able to listen to them. Listen, when you attack people on the internet and call them all sorts of names and dox them and drive by their house and post pictures of their house and do every fucked up thing that you can think of to them, guess what, identitarians? People are not going to be inclined to listen to you. It's not an insignificant point, because most of these people that are into the race stuff that I've interacted with, they attack you first, and then they act all shocked when you don't actually listen to a word they have to say. Well, no, asshole, you're trying to destroy my life and reputation and smearing me all over the internet and doxing my address and physically threatening me with violence. Like, do you really think I'm going to listen to you? Probably not. But if you can find people who are willing to not be overtly toxic assholes, I have actually begun to understand some of their real ideas when it comes to race. I personally don't like the race stuff. I think probably because I'm traumatized for all the toxic bullshit that I've had to endure at their fucking hands. But I also think that it's important to actually hear people out and to listen to people and to understand what their points of view actually are. So we listen to people all the time on this channel that we don't agree with. We listen most of the time to radical revolutionary socialists that we do not agree with at all. Just because we don't agree with them doesn't mean we can't understand them and we can't understand their perspective, and we can't have a nuanced conversation about what they actually believe, because that's what I'm interested in here. I'm not interested in Twitter flame wars. I'm not interested in owning anyone on the internet. I really don't care. I'm not interested in fighting with people. Like, please just go somewhere else if you just want to fight with people. I really just don't have the energy for it. I'm interested in what people actually believe. I'm interested in what people actually think, without this thing that the internet does, which is taking a nugget of truth and then twisting it and contorting it out of any resemblance to what the person actually believes. I believe that if we want to understand other people, we have to be able to explain their perspective in a way that they would agree with. Because if we are not explaining their perspective in a way that they would agree with, then we don't really understand their perspective. We're just trying to own the libs on the internet or own the white identitarians or whatever on the internet. And like, what are we even doing at that point? What are we even doing? We're basically making shit up. And so thank you, No Mayo, Suzanne. Is there any provable evidence that these people are getting dumber? I just think it's true. I think a lot of people are getting dumber on the internet, Suzanne. I do. So of course we're this whites only community is getting a lot of attention. And again, I personally don't like the race stuff, and I personally would never choose to go live in a whites only community, although I do live in New Hampshire. And the irony is not lost on me. I've grown up in New England. I've lived in either Vermont or New Hampshire my entire life. I'm never leaving New England. New England is very, very white. The irony is not lost on me, okay? But am I going to go out and live in an intentionally white community? Probably not. I also will say this, and I'll offer this. I don't want to live in a majority black community. I don't want to live in a majority Mexican community. I don't want to live in a majority Indian community. I don't want to live in a majority Muslim community. And no shade on people who live in those. I don't want to live in a majority Jewish community. I don't want to live in any of those places. I'm fine right here. I'm fine where I am. I'm in New Hampshire. It's very white. I'm fine. We don't have sales tax. It's pretty great. All that stuff. Or income tax. We don't have income tax either. That's pretty great. But like, and I don't mind if people set up communities based on an identity or whatever. I just think as long as we have the ability to say, I want to live here, I don't want to live there, these are the types of people I want to live around, I don't know why this is a problem. I really don't know why this is a problem. If someone wants to go live in a whites only community, and it kind of seems as though they're buying their own private property and just setting up their own thing, then who really cares? If someone wants to go live in a majority black community, or they want to set up their own black identity compound. I know there are intentional black communities all over the country. Wasn't there one in like Colorado? I think there was one in Georgia. Like, if they want to do that and they want to exclude white people or anyone else, I don't give a fuck. It like the same with any of the other ones. It's like, as long as people are just kind of doing their own thing and no one has to go live there and they're not bothering anyone, I just don't know kind of what the big deal is. Like, you don't have to go and live there with them. They don't want you living there with them, and you probably don't want to live there anyway. Two ladies, thank you for the super chat. We knew the race stuff was going to be pushed. We covered this 2 years ago, stating that this was a narrative. The leftists were going to be pushing this narrative. Well, it's not the leftists pushing this narrative, two ladies. It's the right. The left is not pushing a race-based narrative. They've never been pushing a race-based narrative. Again, when the left says whiteness, they don't mean skin color. They've never meant skin color. It has always been about capitalism. It is the right that pushes this as a race-based narrative. And then the right doesn't actually listen to the left. So the right has no idea that they're not talking about the same thing. They're going like this. I do appreciate the super chat though. So I want to watch some videos. I want to watch this Sky News video on it. This is about 26 minutes inside Return to the Land, the group making a whites-only community in Arkansas. And I thought that would give us a good kind of basis. I also saw a couple public statements the guy leading this community has made. I thought it was so funny that TMZ interviewed him. And I've actually watched this already, but I was like, he actually handled this interview with TMZ very well. And I was like, TMZ is getting involved in this? Like, really? Seriously? But so we're going to watch the TMZ interview. We have a statement that he's made based on the backlash that he's gotten to the media coverage lately. And I thought the statement was really good. I've watched this too. So we're going to, again, this is about actually listening to what they're saying and kind of thinking about it. So we're going to do that. Yeah, I'm not going to relitigate every single thing you guys heard on the TV. Because this is what right-leaning people like to do. What about this? What about that? What about that other thing? What about this? What about that? What about that other thing? I'm not going to relitigate everything that you've heard on the TV. What I am telling you is based on analyzing the left over 5 years, watching more of their events and trainings and exercises and DEI trainings than you would ever dare dream. I am not going to do a point-by-point analysis of everything you've ever heard on the internet that you don't like based on you trying to disprove the fact that whiteness means capitalism when it just provably does based on all of the available evidence, and you guys are the ones that don't want to hear it because you want to be poor victims of skin color, okay? So no, we're not going to do that. I agree, though. I was thinking they were playing the right into making a big mistake. That is what I was referring to. The right took the bait. Well, the right is always taking the bait because the right doesn't listen to what the left has to say. Thank you for the super chat. And then if we have extra time, I do actually have this interview actually just went up. He was on Jake Shields' show. I've never actually watched Jake Shields' show. I met Jake Shields at AppPack last year. He was a really nice guy to me. I have no issue with Jake Shields, but so I thought that if we have some extra time, we could actually just listen to them having a discussion. I do generally think that what I do appreciate about Jake is he brings on the most controversial people he can possibly find. And then he has kind of like a reasonable discussion with him based on like what they actually believe. And so that might give us more insight there. So yeah, I don't want to watch the one Nick. I don't want to watch Nick. I like and no shade on Nick. I just want to watch something else. I'm kind of tired of like the Groypers are insufferable right now, and I just don't want to deal with it. So we're not going to watch Nick. See, that's what happens. And the Groypers would say, "You get no viewers, so we don't care." Well, fine. Well, fine. Well, fine. But if you guys enjoyed it, that's fine. All right, so that's what we're going to do today on the show, guys. We're going to talk about this whites-only community. Couple quick things before we get started. We got a big streaming schedule over the next couple of days. Of course, later tonight, we're going to be having Distant Rage with Jennifer. That starts at 9 o'clock. We're going to be looking at all of these megalithic sites like Stonehenge and Machu Picchu and stuff like that. Distant Rage is a show about like spirituality and non-political stuff. We do it every Tuesday night at 9 p.m. So if you want to come learn about these monolithic sites, like these ancient sites that were built a long time ago with all these giant rocks, come and join us for that at 9 p.m. tonight. Then tomorrow, we're going to have Adam Green back on the channel. Adam and I are going to have a discussion about kind of his experience being an anti-Christian crusader on the internet. I think it's going to be a really interesting chat. Adam and I think, have experienced many similar things in terms of the type of backlash that we receive from people who are supposed to be on our own side, but that are not on our side at all. So I think that's going to be an interesting thing. And then tomorrow night, after we do the talk with Adam Green, we are going to be doing a spy stream into the Democratic Socialists of America. They're having a mass organizing call tomorrow where they're actually going to have some really hardcore socialists speaking on that call. And so we are going to be watching that. That is going to be a public spy stream, which is unusual. Normally my spy streams are supporter only, but we are going to be doing that publicly. And that's going to be around 7:30, 8 p.m. tomorrow night, just depending on when they get started. And so that's what we got coming up over the next couple of days. If you feel like subscribing to the channel to join me for any of this, please make sure you do so. I would really appreciate it. Also, please make sure you're subscribed to my Substack. That is Karlyn, KARLYN.substack.com. This is where you can find all my best stuff on the internet, breaking down the far left, doing all that. Of course, we are focusing right now on the Center for Left-Wing Studies, which is my new nonprofit that I've just launched. And we are focusing in specifically on the project Mapping the Modern Left. You can find that at leftwingstudies.com. You can find it right on the homepage. Check this out. We are making some progress. Oh, don't do this to me. Oh, I thought it wasn't going to work for a second. Oh my God, I just had a heart attack. So we're making our way. We are actually creating a map, a physical map of leftist organizations in the United States. There's not really that many in there right now. There's probably about 70 organizations in there right now. So this is just a drop in the bucket. I'm just trying to show people how this works. We're in the process of loading all of the Democratic Socialist groups in. So you can see there. And, I have brought on the first round of volunteers. If you would like to volunteer to be a part of the Center for Left-Wing Studies and to help us with this data entry project, head over to the Substack and click on this article right here. I'll just put the link in the chat. There you go. There you go. And there are ways you can volunteer to come help us out. And I really do appreciate everyone that has raised their hands so far. I also just wanted to show you guys this. For people who think that communists are just in blue cities, someone tagged me in this on Substack earlier, and I do pay attention to all comments and notifications and messages I get on Substack, guys. It's oftentimes the best way to contact me, honestly. Check this out. This is in West Virginia. There is a socialist store in West Virginia. Do you know how we know it's socialist? Mountaineers are never free until everyone is free. If you understand how to speak the language of the left, you understand what that means. That's saying you are not free until we are all free of capitalism. No one is free until we are all liberated from capitalism. That's what that means. No, anyone can do it. This is just data entry. So if you want to do it from Hong Kong, you are welcome to do it there, Dragon Balls. And of course, I really do appreciate it. Yeah, there's so much to enter on that project. It's not even funny. We're going to be spending years building out that map, but it's going to be great. Check it out. Got the progress flag in the door right there. This looks like a witch's shop of some sort. Got some other socialist signs hanging up. But I just thought that was really funny because people are all like, Karlyn, are these people really everywhere? Well, they're in West Virginia. So I don't know. You be the judge of that. So guys, that's what we've got going on right now. We're going to get into the whites only community. I appreciate everyone hanging out today. Please make sure you have mounted the like button if you have not. There is a shocking disparity between the number of people watching and the number of people who've mounted the like button for me. Can we get those likes up, please? I'm not starting the video until we get the likes up. Come on. I'm just going to sit here and wait and have some coffee until I see that like number start to go up because there's just too big of a disparity, guys. It's not responsible. I'm bringing you this content on the internet. If you don't want to watch it with me, that's fine, but you can go somewhere else. You don't have to be here. Blair Witch Bolsheviks. Yeah, real. All right. Keep liking the video. We are going to start with the Sky News coverage. Oh, you gave it a kiss and awesome, Ella. Thank you. Welcome back. You hugged it, caressed it. There we go. See? Is that so hard? Is that so hard? Thank you guys for that. I appreciate it. We're going to start with the Sky News coverage. We're going to see what they had to say about the whites only community.
What we've done here is establish a place where we have control over who our neighbors are, and that is just for the sake of preserving, our culture.
And that culture, effectively, we're saying this is a white culture, a whites-only place.
White American culture.
Over the last year and a half, high up in the Ozark Hills in the state of Arkansas, dozens of people have been working hard, leveling the land, building houses. They call it...
Yeah, so I just want to remind people, actually, just in case there are new people here today, because there might conceivably be new people here today, I don't have an open chat. You have to follow rules to be in my chat, just so we can keep things nice for everyone. I have 2 rules. Number 1, don't be a dick. Do not insult me. Do not insult anyone in the chat. I don't care what you say about the people in the video, but you will not insult people kind of in the room. I think that's kind of basic respect and courtesy. Number 2, no whining. If I say something that hits you right in the feelings and you want to whine and complain about it in my chat, you need to rein that shit in. I'm not your mommy. I'm not going to give you a cookie. I'm not going to give you a pat on the back. I don't actually really care about your feelings. If you want to cry, go somewhere else because I just don't want to hear it. All right? Don't be a dick. No whining. It's real simple. The like button is a function of oppression? Yeah, true. True.
An intentional community based around shared ancestry. A long-winded way of saying something really quite simple.
I think we would generally be called far right, sure.
It's called Return to the Land, and they invited me in.
A lot of people are going to be, why are you making Nazi references?
Right. Well, why wouldn't I?
A seemingly bucolic and sometimes surreal experience. But this is built on a radical modern premise, made possible because of a new political and technological moment.
What?
One with strong ties to the most active far-right groups.
See, this is already disingenuous. Patriot Front is a completely different group than this whites-only community group. Come on. How you're watching a hit piece?
The US. Instead of taking to the streets, they are building their own for generations to come.
It's important for me to do this for my ancestors, my friends, my family, my children, my children's children.
But in this southern US state, people who have lived through segregation once fear it is returning.
When you hear things like that, it causes you to be fearful and you don't know who to trust.
Its founder says
Listen. Oh, okay. Here's the thing. Again, as someone who isn't actually really into the race stuff, the black lady wants to be like, when you hear things like that, it causes you to be fearful. Black lady, do you know what makes me fearful? Do you know what made me extremely fearful? Walking down the street in Detroit. Like, has anyone been outside in Detroit recently? Because I was outside in Detroit last year. One of the biggest mistakes I made when I was in Detroit was literally walking down the street by myself, where I was accosted by a black person at a 7-Eleven within 1 block of my hotel. And it was a nice hotel. So you want to be upset that some white people bought some private property in Arkansas to set up their own intentional community? I was fearful for my life walking a block in Detroit.
And you don't know who to trust.
its founder says he is building a fortress for the white race.
It's a racial association. I kind of want to ask you, after seeing this, do you think what we're doing is immoral?
Yeah. How about that time I was chased by an angry mob of black people in Dallas, Texas? How about that? I've never been chased by a mob of white people. I've only been chased by a mob of black people, throwing stuff at me, trying to steal my phone, trying to break stuff. Like, come on. You know what makes me fearful? Peeling an ear of corn, expecting a spider to be underneath. Yeah, a true rude boy. Actually, I agree with that. That's actually very real.
Arkansas, in the southern United States.
Yeah, that's racist. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Welcome to Little Rock, where the local time is 4:27.
For the last few years, I've been exploring how an ethno-nationalist movement has been organizing online. A network that aims to define countries by ethnicity, but which links across borders. And this is the place that one group has chosen to put that into radical real-world action.
You want a white nation? Build a white town. It can be done, and we're doing it.
It is an extreme view, but it draws on more familiar arguments. That mass immigration is out of control, that Western societies are in danger of losing their fundamental character as a result.
So one of the arguments here is that this isn't about persecution of an ethnic identity, but protection of an ethnic identity, and that identity happens to be white. So we're going here now up into these pretty remote woods to really
okay, so this is one of the arguments that I think people, like, I want to make sure people understand, because I don't know how many people do actually understand this. So I mean, the argument being made is that mass immigration and other factors in the United States are going to lead to the eventual extinction of white people. And I mean, they're not actually wrong about that. And okay, personally, so I was looking at this, there was a tweet that went around about like Ireland. So my family is from Ireland. My mother's side of the family is from Ireland. They were, my mother's side of the family is Kelty. That when they came across on the boat, they were one of those people that, like, they literally came across on the boat. They went through Ellis Island. They were Kelly in Ireland, and then the T got crossed at some point and it became Kelty. And I kind of I don't want Ireland to be brown. I just don't. I think Ireland is a place for like white people, but Ireland is slowly but surely becoming very brown. It's the same thing with like England, right? England should not be brown. I'm sorry, this is nothing against brown people, but like the English should be allowed to like live and perpetuate without basically their entire countries being taken over. And I kind of feel like it's the same like here. I think that it is a very real concern to say, the way things are going with demographic changes, and I think you can say this too without saying, like, I don't think that white people are necessarily better or superior. I think there are good white people and bad white people. I think there are high IQ black people, though probably less than high IQ white people. And I think there are low IQ black people. And I think that's true of any race. I don't actually care if someone is black or white or anything. But I think there is something to be said for the fact that, like, maybe we don't want all white people and all European kind of races to go away. Yeah, the Japanese get to protect their national identity. What's wrong with that?
That to the test.
We are driving deep into the Ozark Mountains. The group's leaders are not from Arkansas, and they've chosen these remote parts for a reason. All the locals I spoke to knew only a little about
Yeah,
the
the
group,
segregation
if
is
anything.
voluntary, not
I
mandatory.
don't necessarily agree with it, but that's not my choice.
Yeah, but do you think they should have the freedom to do it?
That's what they want to do.
I think it's kind of a little fishy around here, but just be safe.
The leader of the group is called Eric Orr, and he's invited me to spend a few days with them.
Hey, Eric.
He insists what he is doing here is entirely legal, and that's key, because if it is, it could be a blueprint for many other communities to come.
Welcome to the Ozarks.
Thank you very much.
What we've done here is establish a place where we have control over who our neighbors are, and that is just for the sake of preserving, our culture.
And that culture, effectively, we're saying this is a white culture, a whites only place.
White American culture. Yeah, not just white, but white American.
But what this sounds like is bringing back segregation. Is that a fair assessment?
Well, I mean, it's free association. So we're not trying to keep other people down. This is a small settlement in the middle of the Ozarks.
But they are being kept out.
You don't let everyone into your home.
160 acres taking shape, forest cleared, roads laid, cabins built. Around 40 people live here. Hundreds more from across the world have paid to be members. And I'm intrigued to find out what motivates people to give up their old lives for this.
We met here.
Oh, you met here? I guess he came here.
I met her on like day 3.
Yeah.
Oh my God, what a story. It beats Tinder, doesn't it? Like,
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
David and Caitlin not only met here, they got married last month. They wouldn't be here without social media.
Somebody had posted a video of Eric.
Yeah.
I saw videos of them actually building stuff on the land. I was like, oh man, I gotta come check this out.
I figure if there's nothing else like this in the country, like it should at least exist.
Yeah.
Like, do people really think that we should never be able to choose our neighbors?
It wouldn't be controversial for any other racial group to do the same thing.
I think it'd be quite controversial.
Well, if you don't have rules against it, then
There are multiple Black intentional communities in the United States right now.
anyone of any race can come and be your neighbor, and they're watching the news, which is telling you that white people are, the cause of all your problems and all the ills of society, and suddenly, your children are much less safe because there's a lot of violence, anti-white violence happening to white people and white children, and so
specifically motivated by racism against white people. What sort of things the heavens are about to...
Yeah. I'd like to continue talking, but the rain starts and it comes down hard. The residents shelter in their cabins and
Yeah. What about hang on, wrong one. What about Chinatown in every American city has a Chinatown? Are we going to get rid of all Chinatowns now?
The next morning. This is how the average weekend works at Return to the Land, or RTTL, what they call a work party, made up of residents, but also new recruits who have come to check out the project. It is hot, hard work. To join RTTL, you have to sign up to the Private Members Association, or PMA. And there are strict criteria for membership, as Scott Thomas, a board member and one of the founding fathers here, explains.
You have to be a PMA member to live here.
Yeah.
So you have to be someone of European heritage.
The group's logo, based on a Nordic rune, draws on that heritage. It is the PMA that the group believes makes this all legal. Once members have been vetted on ethnicity and other grounds, they can buy shares in the Limited Liability Company, or LLC. Those shares translate to acres of land that they can build on. Peter Seri is the brains behind the legal side of things.
Civil Rights Act is there for a reason, and this is a way around it.
Yeah,
Do you think it'll survive contact with the legal system, the courts, if it came to that?
hopefully.
Do you think it's racist or not? Do you reject that term? Do you embrace it?
I don't know about that term. I mean, people use it in a lot of different ways. I'm sure there's a lot of people on the internet who would call me racist. I don't really know or care whether that term applies to me or not. Maybe.
Scott, what do you think?
Yeah, I almost don't know what racist means anymore. Like it's
a prejudice towards someone who's from a different ethnicity.
Well, actually, the modern definition of racism, according to critical race theory, all white people are racist automatically.
No. See, this is the problem. That's not what critical race theory says at all. But you can't have a conversation with any of these people about what critical race theory actually means, because if they actually understand what it means, it goes against their entire kind of basis for doing stuff like this. Now, here's the thing. I don't give a flying fuck if people want to set up a whites only community, but can we just be intellectually honest about what the left actually believes? No, because they'll never talk to me. I know this. I've been around these people for a long time. They are not interested in an intellectual conversation about what the left actually means. They're only interested in being poor, victimized white people. And I quite frankly think it's really kind of sad and pathetic. And it's like, I have no problem with what they're doing on a functional basis, but the minute that you confront them and you show them evidence, that's not what the left is saying at all in any way. They turn into the most toxic assholes that you've ever seen in your life. And so, no, I've been through round after round with people like this. They don't want to hear it. They're not intellectually honest. They only want their feelings confirmed. They're just as bad as like the left in so many ways. So, no, I'm not going to talk to them about it. That's not going to happen.
A lot of this is reaction to left-wing identity politics, critical race theory, and movements like Black Lives Matter. And fundamentally, this is identity politics, but white identity politics. And what they're building here is a safe space for people of European ancestry.
It's exclusionary. It's sort of
like,
an attempt at segregation.
If all they really care about is defending European identity, that should actually be enough of a reason. But no, they have to believe they hate white people. They hate white people. They hate white people. They hate white people. And it's just like, you know what? I don't actually care about what you're doing. I don't actually think it's wrong. I don't actually think it's hateful. But they mean Mary, I've literally explained this before. So and you can buy my book, A Brief History of Racism, and that will give you all the quotes. You can find this information on my Substack. I'm pretty sure you've been around when I've explained it before, and so I don't actually appreciate you acting stupid when I know you've been around when I've explained it before, because I don't like answering the same question over and over and over and over and over again from people who are not being intellectually honest about asking it. What you're doing is you're trying to give me a different explanation. You're trying to get me to give you a different explanation than the explanation I've given 1,000 times, which is when the left says whiteness, what they're referring to is systemic racism. Systemic racism means the system that upholds racism. That system is capitalism. They believe that capitalism has created all racial disparities in this country. That is what they're referring to. That is why whiteness means capitalism. It doesn't mean white skin color. It has never meant white skin color. Not in the entire history of the term racism has it meant white skin color. But these people don't want to hear it. They don't want to look at the evidence. They don't want to see the videos of actual critical race theorists saying black people can be white too. They don't want to see the videos of actual critical race theorists saying that this is about a system named capitalism that upholds private property ownership. They don't want to see the videos of actual communists saying when the term white was invented, it meant people who did not work in the sun. That meant the property owner. That, again, black people could be white too under that system because it wasn't about individual skin color. It was about the overall system. So. No, critical race theory is Marxism. Marxism is critical race theory. It's the same thing.
Right.
Is that fair?
Probably.
While the men labour at the roadside, the women of Return to the Land are at work too. looking after the 6 children who live and are homeschooled here full time.
No.
And they're preparing food
No.
for the weekly community dinner.
No. See, this is why I don't even. Should I just stop the stream right now? Because this is actually why I didn't want to cover this topic. Well, they may not mean it, but every leftist means white people. No, they don't. No, they don't. And if you actually listen to the context of what they were saying, rather than looking at your clickbait bullshit content on the internet that just reinforces this stuff, you would know that. No, they don't. That's all lies. This is what we call the bullshit conservative narrative. It is not real. It's made up. My God.
The theme tonight, colonial.
I don't know, dinner's
Like the people who are let me just be really clear. If I have to constantly deal with people in the chat going, the left hates white people, 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 the left if I have to deal with this bullshit, I'm just stopping the stream and I'm not going to watch it at all. I've addressed this countless times. There are countless videos on this channel of me addressing it if you want to hear the full explanation. There are countless resources over on the Substack if you want the full breakdown of what this means. There are countless videos of me having leftists literally explain this. Again, on the Substack and on the channel, you can go avail yourself of all of the resources. I have done this for literally fucking years. I am not going to be arguing with conservatives and right-wing dissidents who want to believe that they are poor white victims of the fucking world. No, you don't know shit. Here we go. But there are different leftists. Oh, you know there are different leftists? Oh, really? Oh, really? How long have you been undercover with the left? There are different leftists, and some of them hate white people. Really? How many leftist events have you gone undercover at? How many? List them in the chat right the fuck now. This is only for Rocky Mountain Bear. No one else answer. I want to know exactly how many events, how many leftist events you've gone undercover at. I want to know exactly how many hours of leftist training and DEI training specifically that you've watched. I want specific video clips in the chat now. If you don't give it, or if you don't admit that you don't have the information that I'm asking for, I'm permanently banning you from my chat. You think I'm fucking around when I say I don't want to argue about this with right-wingers who want to be poor white victims of the fucking world? Answer the fucking question. We're waiting, Rocky. We're waiting. If you're new, please restrict yourself to asking questions in good faith. If you're going to debunk or shitpost, pay for it or be censored. Yeah. We're waiting, Rocky. We're waiting. Yes. 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 Absolutely. You have to go undercover, or you have to spend thousands of hours watching DEI training just like I already did years ago to be able to show all this information. So what have you actually done other than consume bullshit conservative clickbait content on the internet? We could be learning about the whites only community right now, but because of your fucking bullshit feelings, because you need to feel like a poor white victim of the world, we're doing this instead. What have you actually done? Make us a list now. You want to fuck around in my chat when I've told you no? Make a list. What have you actually done now? If you don't, I'm permanently banning you from my chat. You will not be welcome back. I'm waiting. We're all waiting. We've stopped the entire stream just for your fucking feelings. You have 30 seconds. No. You don't tell me what to do. Now you're in a timeout. You have 30 seconds, Rocky. Yes, I am a massive fucking cunt. I am the queen fascist bitch of my YouTube channel, and you are here by my consent. We're waiting, Rocky. 30 seconds. $20 seconds. Bye. Goodbye. Permanently banned. Goodbye. See, that's how we deal with that.
really important. I like feeding people, so I didn't want to put this off any longer than I already had.
Yeah. See, this is the typical white leftist, or excuse me, white identitarian. Just called you a leftist. You are a leftist yourself. Permanently banned. Goodbye. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to say, or can we continue with the video? Does any other victimized white man have something they want to say? And by the way, isn't it always the weakest fucking men in the world who are like, the left hates white people? Is there any weaker man in the world than a white man who's running around crying about how the left hates white people? Does anyone else have feelings? Let me know.
The day when we first got the land here, there were only about 5 guys. I was living 40 minutes from here, and Jennifer was the first, family to be on the land.
And by the way,
So
this is the last thing I'm going to say about this. Do you guys notice that not a single right-wing identitarian asshole who has ever come on my channel and said, the left hates white people? Have you ever noticed that not a single one of them can provide any credentials to actually studying what the left says? Have you ever noticed that not a single one of them actually spends any time engaging with actual left-wingers at all? They just take conservative clickbait content that's taken out of context to make it seem like it's what they're saying. They don't. This is why I never talk to these people. They don't listen. They aren't interested in what the left is actually saying. They do no research. They do no work themselves. When you ask them, what did I ask Rocky? What have you done to actually study this? And he said, yeah, I don't have to study it. I don't have to do it. And then I said, what have you actually done? He said, I'm leaving. I'm taking my toys and going home, because he hasn't done shit. This is the problem. It's like these people think they know fucking everything. They usually know nothing. They usually get their clips from like Libs of TikTok or some other Jewish accounts, while at the same time claiming to not like Jewish people, which is another sort of irony. See, look at this. They actually, okay, another person who has no fucking clue what he's talking about. Goodbye, you're not welcome here. Does anyone else have feelings? These people can never give any sort of bona fides. Look, this is their best argument. It's called critical race theory, not critical class theory. You're going to tell me this person has spent any time listening to the left at all, and I'm supposed to listen to them? It's not called critical class theory. What the fuck do you think critical theory is, you downright fucking ridiculous moron? Does anyone else have feeling like this is I knew this was going to attract the wrong type of people to my channel. I knew that watching this content was going to attract exactly the type of people that I don't want. Yeah. It's some of the most retarded shit I've ever heard.
we started community dinners back then.
My God.
Because there weren't many people, but it is nice. It's slowly growing. So
They've come here to live for a variety of reasons, but their dedication to the mission is absolute.
My name's Nikki, N-I-K-I. I'm 32.
Cool.
I'm a lady.
My name's Allison, A-L-I-S-O-N. I'm 29.
Right.
And Caitlin, C-A-I-T-L-I-N. I'm 31.
I think people just have a large misunderstanding of what's happening here.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What's the biggest misunderstanding?
Well,
that we hate everyone else.
Yeah,
it's not about that.
Yeah,
by any means.
It's a loving movement.
I mean, on that aspect of it being loving, I suppose the counter argument would be you can be a very loving community if you're part of the community, but if you're black, if you're Jewish, or if you're gay, you can't be part of that community.
They can have their own communities, and they already do. And I think that's great for them. If other people are allowed to do it, I don't really see why whites aren't allowed to do it. It doesn't make any sense.
But the goal is to have lots of these communities, and for it maybe not to be rural, for there to be cities
real.
on the same basis, right?
Yeah, that would be neat. I look forward to seeing how this movement grows over time.
There are other ways to increase numbers. Nikki, Caitlin, and Allison all met their partners at the community.
Yeah, real.
And RTTL is explicit about this. It has an online fundraiser to give cash rewards to parents of newborns as a means to incentivize population growth. Just before we arrived, they had donated $1,000 to a family for having their 6th child.
Is that part of the mission as well, to sort of have big families, to make the community bigger? Is there a sort of pressure there?
I don't think so. I don't feel particularly myself, I don't feel any pressure to like have a big family. I think there's a kind of expectation here that you do want to, as part of helping grow this thing, that you're going to have kids.
There's not a lot to show around here. I basically just have the whole pasture area.
Peter is unattached. This is his homestead. He's been on a journey. He told me he used to be a liberal, a hippie even.
A knife is a tool. It has to be very sharp in order to cut properly.
He founded a commune in Ecuador, an intentional community based not on ethnicity, but veganism.
So this is your lot?
Yeah.
He's also immersed in internet culture, someone who delights in provoking reactions, a troll. On the group chat on the messaging app Telegram, he's posted the numbers 1488. The 14 refers to the 14 words, a white supremacist slogan. And H is the 8th letter of the alphabet. So 88 means HH, which means Heil Hitler.
Because you put that in the Telegram, for instance. What does that mean when you place that in Telegram 1488?
Well, I use it as kind of like a funny comment throwback.
As part of that Nazi discussion, another frequent topic on the online chat is the Holocaust. Usually minimized, sometimes even mocked.
But the Holocaust, stands as a unique
See, you know what the irony is?
Well,
you know what the irony is? And I'm just going to have this recorded for posterity, just in case. So even though I yell and scream at white identitarians in my chat who are acting like complete unhinged retards who will not listen to the left and not even be able to intellectually grapple with what the left actually says, I promise you, if there's ever a hit piece written about me, again, because there have been before, but not in a long time, thank God. But if there is ever a hit piece written about me again, they're going to include something about the fact that I've been involved in these Christian question spaces with all these racist guys who say the N-word over and over again, and they say 1488, and they say all this stuff, and they talk about all the Holocaust stuff, and they do all that. And I'm involved in those Twitter spaces because I like listening to them argue with Christians, but that's not going to be the story that's told. The story that's going to be told is Karlyn follows people on Twitter who are really racist Nazis, and therefore she is a racist Nazi, even though I'm on video over and over and over and over and over again, like literally screaming at white identitarians who don't understand that it's not about skin color, it's about capitalism. So I'm just putting this on video now just for posterity in case that ever happens, because I actually have no problem being in spaces with people who say things that are spicy or who says things that I disagree with or any of that. I actually think it's kind of funny. They created their own culture about it, but it's just like, that's what's going to happen. They're going to be like, Karlyn is a racist neo-Nazi because she's in these Twitter spaces, even though there's plenty of evidence to the contrary. Yeah, but the spaces are funny. And so, let's see, we got a super chat. What am I knitting? I'm knitting a shawl. Yes. Well, actually, and Adam's going to be on the channel tomorrow, guys. So come back tomorrow at 5 o'clock. There is a lot of green in this shawl. So, looks cool, doesn't it? It's a very pretty color green. So appreciate that, Wilhelm. Thank you. I unfortunately have the same problem with arguing with people in white identitarian circles. It took me a while to understand that. I'm sorry. It's just like, yeah, it's crazy. It's like, but most of the people that I have experience like with that are also Christians. And so I think that there's probably an overlap there. No offense, Christians. Yeah, that's not going to happen, George Rockwell, over on Rumble. That's not going to happen. Out of interest, do you know why these journalists appear to be against this while not doing the same thing with other groups? I mean, it's because they're massive hypocrites and they're just trying to get clickbait content. They're just trying to create outrage content. Like, they're leftists. The media is controlled by leftists. Obviously, this is a UK. The Sky News is UK, so they're extremely leftist. So they were just trying to do a hit piece. If I were in charge of this whites only community and I got asked by the news to come, like, have someone come stay there and do an interview, I'd probably be like, nah, Because it's obviously just a hit piece. Like, it's not about telling the truth. It's just about owning the racist or whatever. Yeah, I love those spaces. Did you guys hear the space last night? There was a black Hebrew Israelite in the space arguing with a bunch of like white racist Nazis, but they were actually having a really cordial conversation. And it was actually kind of fascinating because you got to hear the perspective of the black Hebrew Israelite. He actually like lives in Israel, and he's like a farmer in Israel, and he was talking with the racist neo-Nazi Americans for like over an hour. It was a great space last night. See, this is the right attitude. Holy cannoli. Correct attitude. Thank you for your service. All right, let's keep going.
Your opinion.
Oh, go ahead.
I think the Holodomor was much worse than the Holocaust. That's
True.
my opinion.
Actually, legitimately true.
We're allowed to have opinions.
Yeah, well, I mean, we can say they're both bad. The Holocaust was bad.
But do you know anything about the Holodomor?
Yeah, in Ukraine,
right.
The famine, I know a little bit about it. And I know it was awful too, and
right,
it was sort of deliberate. But we can also agree the Holocaust is bad.
Well, you know, we don't have to say that one was objectively worse than the other.
I'm not saying one. I'm not saying that. I'm saying, like, was the Holocaust a bad thing?
So basically, all I'm saying is that I don't really see it as concerning that people are talking about Hitler when it's acceptable. It's publicly, socially acceptable in the United States for leftists to support German Mao.
It's quite difficult to agree on even the very bare minimum here.
It's just interesting, sort of, when we're coming to talking about the Holocaust, it's always about something else. And you know, I think most people would agree the Holocaust was a bad thing.
Right.
But you're not willing to agree with that.
What, do you want to talk about the whole? I mean, it
fine.
seems like an interesting subject, but
it is an interesting subject. I also think that was a bad thing, but I think the Holocaust was a bad thing too.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, are you asking?
Well, no. Yeah, I'm asking. Do you think the Holocaust was bad?
Yeah. Yeah, I think the Holocaust was bad.
And it's still not good enough. It's still not good enough.
RTTL is based on exclusion, but that also means building community for those allowed inside. This isn't just for our camera's benefit, to present a veneer of clean, healthy living. It's central to the project. Like many far-right movements before them, RTTL's mission is to show that by excluding others, they can live purer, more natural lives. As they put it on their website, to cultivate wholesomeness, beauty, health, and hope.
I mean, again, like the Hebrew Israelite that was on the space last night was actually, it was an incredibly cordial conversation, considering that the racists kept calling him the N-word over and over and over and over. And it was honestly fascinating.
Let's talk about hope. As much as RTTL might like, they do not exist in a separate world. Pocahontas is the nearest town to the settlement. And hope means something different for Pat Johnson.
I'm Tom.
I'm Pat.
Oh, you're Pat. Lovely to meet you, Pat. How are you?
We met her before we went up into the hills.
It was about 25 students that attended school here.
The whole
and
time,
off.
yeah.
Mhm.
So it's really tiny.
What does this have to do with the community?
Yes.
Second from bottom. How old are you in that photo?
Okay, so now they've gone to the whites only community. They found a bunch of people who literally just want to be left alone. And so now they're going to go interview a black lady in the community who's like, I don't like it. Well, you don't have to like it, actually, in real life.
I don't know. I think probably about 12 or 13.
This is the school
has
she
nothing
attended
to
in
do
the
with it.
1950s, a school for black children only, because she was not allowed to be educated with white people.
Oh, so black people are
Unlike
allowed to have
the
their
members
own
of Return
schools.
to the Land, she is Arkansas born and bred. For the first 15 years of her life,
Do you
she
guys
lived
know?
under segregation.
Do you guys know that black socialist education activists want there to be black only schools today? Black socialist education activists are actually completely against the integration of the schools because they believe that black children are better educated by like black community members or something. I've heard them talk about this multiple times at conferences. So I think it's a little funny that black socialists are usually just actually completely in favor of segregation, and then they get all pissed off when white people want to do the same thing?
We could not go to school together. We couldn't eat together. We couldn't do everyday things together. Each day that you leave your home, you are under rejection.
And Pat had hoped those days had gone.
When you hear things like that, it causes you to be
Hawaii
fearful.
has Hawaiian only schools. Wouldn't
And
you
you
know
don't
it?
know who to trust.
When I explain what Return to the Land is doing, just half an hour's drive away, she's not so sure. And in her eyes, there's one main reason for that.
And I feel like that's the change of, and I'm just going to say, I think it's the change of our presidency. That's what I'm going to say.
Oh, it's
because
Trump's
I
fault.
feel like
Yeah, it's all Trump's fault. Yeah, okay.
That's where the change is. It's allowing people to have the right to be open for hatred.
That may be a feeling, but it is also backed by the data. These are all the white supremacist incidents, demonstrations, leafleting, recruitment drives, meetups over the last 4 years in the US, tracked by ACLED, an organization that monitors violent conflict and protest.
Wow.
There has been a dramatic increase over that period. It has become a background thrum of nationalist activity.
We are literally surrounded by white supremacists. Oh, Patriot Front!
Patriot Front is the most active white nationalist organization in the US right now, according to ACLED. Its leader is Thomas Rousseau.
Foreign races have never successfully assimilated en masse into American culture and nationality.
And the group has tight links to Return to the Land. Eric and Thomas speak on each other's podcasts and have fast-track membership for both organizations.
Comfy? Feels good?
Yeah. It's about time we spoke to Eric.
Less than 50% of children born today in the US are white. I'm white, my kids are white. There is something to your background that informs who you are, your sense of identity. And we don't want that sense of identity being taken away from us involuntarily. So we're taking control of that situation and creating an environment where my kids can celebrate their identity and not have it, threatened from outside, I guess.
But why is that threatening you? Why is that an issue that you've had to address? There will always be white people.
Well, I'm feeling a little nervous now in the interview. We are forced to accept people into our neighborhoods, into our businesses, and into our lives who won't share our background, who won't share many of our cultural priors, even moral priors. We don't have a rule stating, if you have X amount of non-European ancestry, you're definitely out. In many cases, that would disqualify someone.
Were I to apply to the PMA and my views were different, I'd probably be allowed in. Do you think that's likely? I know it's a case-by-case basis, but just off the top of your head.
Yeah, possibly we would accept you in the PMA.
I don't understand white American culture, but you'd rather have me in that case. I just wonder, though, whether some people watching this, having heard all this intellectualizing, this rhetoric, would say, fine, but actually at heart, this is just, it is just prejudice. It is just bigotry. It is just lowest common denominator racism dressed up in these arguments.
Oh,
and I would just question the moral frame.
This is where I'm like, these fucking journalists, they don't do any research at all. They don't bother to do any research at all. To say that this is lowest common denominator racism, no. There is far more toxic racist groups out there. Like, I don't know where, like, you guys think that this guy buying a plot of land with a bunch of other people and setting up shop in the mountains, you think this is lowest common denominator racism? Have you ever been on the internet? Do you want me to introduce you to like probably a dozen groups on the internet that are way more toxic, way more ridiculous, way more hateful? Have you ever been on Gab? Sky News reporter. Have you ever been on Gab in your life? Because to say that this is the worst of the worst is just fuck off insane for anyone that's been on Gab for like 15 minutes.
Why is it wrong to identify with your own people want an integrated culture where you can be yourself.
Just to boil it down to what for you is the definition of racism?
When I was a kid, I suppose I interpreted racism to be judging someone solely on the basis of their race. And is that a good or bad thing? I think this basic moral consensus treats it as automatically a bad thing without a lot of reflection.
This is my last day here. And before I go, I want to speak to John, not a leader like Eric or Pete or Scott, but an acolyte, a young one and newly arrived. He's only been here a month.
So I'm trying to knock off some of this more good topsoil, give it some more.
We'd seen him when we first came up. He guided us in on his bicycle.
It's just you have a community where you feel like you belong here. You have people you can talk to, and I can't explain it. It's too beautiful. It's nice.
He'd been working on Scott's new house over the weekend. In return for his labor, he gets cheap rent. John dropped out of college, and he's worked jobs all over the United States. He's 26, younger than the leaders who are all in their 30s. If they are the recruiters, he is the perfect recruit. And for John, the primary motivation was financial.
To me, it's economical. It's an economic decision, right? And everything else just kind of falls in line. Yeah. But the main thing to me is cheap land. Everything else is a bonus.
You've got 2 levels here.
Yep. Got a loft up top, and this is the main area.
It's a living area down here. So it's quite comfy, right?
It is quite comfy. As for excluding people, I don't see it that way. We're trying to embrace our culture and our heritage. It's been denigrated, if you ask me. We've turned into a melting pot of a country for a long time now.
There is one last thing before I go. A concert put on in honor of our visit.
This first piece that Peter and I are performing, it's called The Virginia Colonies by Fred Cooper. The English governor returned to take his place.
Eric himself takes the stage.
This is a Baroque flute, also known as the German flute or the penny whistle. It was a very popular instrument in colonial America.
It's not easy to look tough with a flute, even if it's German. But the audience is rapt.
Yo, playing the flute is hard. Have you guys ever tried playing the flute?
Would America be better as a white nation state?
Better in what sense?
Would you prefer, completely blank slate, America is just an ethnically white country?
Yes.
I would probably feel more comfortable there because I'm white, and that's the way that this country was when my ancestors came here.
You also talk about Hitler in your videos a couple of times when you've talked about people who are waiting around for a new Hitler to come. Mm-hmm. And you said he's not going to show up. You have to do the work for that Hitler to arrive.
Hitler is a very controversial historical figure. I think the mainstream view is one-sided. It's informed by World War II propaganda, but also the contrary position that Hitler did nothing wrong that many people online say, that's also a one-sided view. I think all historical figures are complex, multidimensional, but when I say you're gonna have to wait for that new Hitler to arise, I'm not saying you're gonna have to wait for a new person to start a new Holocaust. I'm saying you're gonna have to wait for a charismatic leader who's going to advocate for your interests, because that's how a lot of people see Hitler. I'm addressing how they think of Hitler, not my own view.
There are other PMAs, other bits of land that are going ahead.
Yeah, there are 2 other groups, actually 3, organizing. One in Appalachia, one in the Pacific Northwest, and then another one here in Arkansas.
So this is the growing movement.
Right now it's growing very quickly. Yeah, we have applicants every week. I would like to see more communities so that people in all parts of the US have this as an option if they want it. I would also like to see us network and branch out internationally to a greater extent.
Is there anything you want to talk about that I haven't asked about?
I kind of want to ask you, after seeing this, do you think what we're doing is immoral?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Why?
And that's not, for me, it is morally objectionable. I think the way we've talked about it is, I don't think it is like a country club. That's the difference. I don't think this is sort of free association. I think you are depriving people of a fundamental
How?
right to housing. That's how I see this issue.
How are they depriving anyone of housing? Because that's retarded, bro. See, this is lowest common denominator journalism right here. How the fuck are they depriving anyone of housing by having a private plot of land where they get to decide who uses their land?
The reason I'm asking those questions about where it goes from here, I think that is a thought experiment, but I think if you replicated it large, I think I would be unhappy with how that looked if it were in my country. And
Yeah.
if I were on the
What
receiving
about
end of it.
what about senior citizen neighborhoods? What about Jewish neighborhoods? What about Chinatown? What about black only communities that exist like this? But no, it's only the white ones that's depriving people of housing. Okay.
You think intentional communities shouldn't be able to associate how they like?
Not on the basis of race. And the Arkansas State Attorney General told us, "This is the first I've heard of these allegations. Racial discrimination has no place in Arkansas or anywhere in a free society. These allegations raise all sorts of legal issues, including constitutional concerns. My office is reviewing the matter."
Is that it? No.
This is how members of Return to the Land often spend their evenings, around the campfire. It's not especially kumbaya when it's about keeping other races out.
Even like splice this into the shots we would have used. Somebody says something like a little bit like racist, just like
Well, like how would it be kumbaya if they were forced to accept people in their community that they don't want there? How would it be nicer if like the state picked up a black family and put them in this community? By the way, that's not going to be good for the black family either, because they're not wanted there, and they may be very nice people, and I'm sure they would be, and I'm sure they wouldn't do anything wrong, but like if they want to be amongst themselves and you force integration into the community, you're going to fuck it up for them. You're also going to fuck it up for that black family that doesn't actually want to be there either, because they don't want to be around people that don't want to be around them either.
the gasoline blowing up in the fire.
The bulldozer isn't just a novel way to build a fire. It's also a reminder that this group's ambitions extend far beyond cozy get-togethers in the hills.
Yeah, there are already black communities.
The conditions and materials for that to happen, the politics and the technology, have been on hand for some time now. And once set alight, who knows how fiercely it will burn and who the flames will touch.
All right. So that was the Sky News hit piece, and that got a lot of attention. And so next I want to watch the TMZ interview, and I want to see how this went. And just so you guys know, the TMZ interviewer is Jewish, so he's going to have a lot of opinions here.
That invites whites only. It is a white-only community. And there is talk now that there may be other communities in other states, like in Appalachia, other places, the Pacific Northwest, where this could expand to. The person who has created this community in Arkansas is a man named Eric Orwell, and he is joining us right now. Eric, welcome to TMZ Live.
Hi, good to be with you. Thanks for the invite.
So, first of all, explain the premise. Why a white-only community?
Well, many white Americans do value their European heritage, and we don't think there's anything wrong with that. Many also are afraid that our identity is under threat from mass immigration, low fertility rates, just cultural changes. And we're not just a racial association. We also value traditional European culture, architecture, music, art. And so we want to create a space where that can be celebrated.
So when we say white only.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with this. Actually, it's kind of like, You know, listen, one of the big complaints I have with people on the right is they just complain, and they literally never do anything other than meme on Twitter and complain on Twitter, and then come into my chat and complain, and then come into my comments and complain. And it's like, so the big chief, like, you know, grievance that I have is like, okay, if you have a problem with something, why don't you do something about it? Why don't you actually do something responsible and fix it? And so you might not like this Eric guy, and I don't think I don't have any like sort of bad feelings about him, honestly. Like, I don't like him or dislike him, I suppose. But at least he's doing something. And what he's doing is not a small undertaking. Like, it's kind of an audacious undertaking, to be honest. And so you know what? You might not like these people, you might not like their ideas, but they're out there, they're actually doing something in the real world to try to solve a problem. They're trying to do something to make their lives better. They're trying to do something that they believe is going to help and serve other people. They aren't keeping anyone, they aren't like, you know, they're allowing people to identify who wants to be a part of this and who, you know, doesn't. So on the basis of that alone, I have to give respect and I have to give consideration, because it's not a small thing to put the work in to start a project like this and then to maintain a project like this. And maybe they've made mistakes. I don't know. I mean, I don't have any problem with this community, but you could say, even if they've made mistakes along the way, even if there have been problems, at least they're doing something, which is better than what most people on the right are doing, which is nothing.
For example, what if a Jewish person, what if I come in and say, I'd like to join this community?
Well, you're welcome to apply.
Yeah, why
Admissions
not?
Decisions are made on a case-by-case basis.
Why not? Why can't we create? I might actually go for this. I would actually go for this community. Why can't we create a community of like no Abrahamic religions? No Abrahamic religions. You're allowed to do anything else, but you're not allowed to do an Abrahamic religion. Why do we do that? I would actually. Can you guys come to New Hampshire and do that so I don't have to move? I think that'd be a really good idea.
And we're not purists about this. So if someone has some non-white ancestry, there's a chance they could be accepted. We do view Jewish origins as having their roots in the Near East, and so they wouldn't fall into the category of European heritage.
Why is European heritage the purest form of European heritage, something that you embrace to the exclusion of others?
Well, for something to be what it is, it has to not be other things. I think it's fine if people want to blend and mix and mingle cultures.
That's like the easiest explanation of this. It's like, if you value one thing, you can't combine it with other things, because if you bring in the other things, you're going to fundamentally destroy the thing that you're trying to protect. It's like again, like, part of my family's Irish. I would really like Irish people to still exist at some point. I like Irish people. Can we not mix them with other types of people so that there can actually be Irish people in existence? Like, I don't think I'm asking too much.
But I do want cultural diversity to exist. So I want a pure form of Portuguese culture to exist. I want pure Japanese culture to exist in their own respective spheres. So I want a kind of pure European tradition to be maintained somewhere.
I mean, that's the classic segregationist policy, which, you know, we had, you know, up till the early 1960s. So fair to say you're a segregationist.
The major difference is that back then it was forced segregation, and I think that's immoral. Right now what we have is effective forced integration, and I think that's also immoral. Forcing people...
So you're actually suggesting that people like Handsome Truth, who spend their lives online to call Black people hard R, aren't actually accomplishing anything? Well, I mean, at least he's entertaining, I guess. Do I think he's accomplishing anything? I mean, you know what? Honestly, no. I'm actually going to take that back. To be serious for a second, I actually think that the Twitter Spaces that he's hosting, it is exposing people to truths about Christianity, and I think it is actually being very helpful to people. And those Twitter spaces are kind of like a support group for former Christians who are coming together to support each other about not being Christian anymore. And so I do actually think he is serving a community of people that needed a space like that to talk about those types of issues. Do I think that he's solving the race problem? No, probably not. But I don't think it's entirely like, you know, insignificant exercise.
To live in ways they don't want to live is the problem. It's not that people may want to voluntarily go their own way. I don't think there's anything morally wrong with that.
I mean, there are clearly people who would say that this is a racist premise and that you are racist for propagating it. What do you say to them?
Well, our association is racial in nature as well as cultural, but we wouldn't identify as racists. And it's not entirely clear what people mean by racist anyway.
You know, there are federal laws, the Fair Employment and Housing Act, and others that prohibit discrimination. So you have a community where people live, and it's essentially a whites-only community. How do you get around that federal law?
Our goal is not to get around federal law, it's to abide by it. And there are exceptions in the Fair Housing Act and other legislation like the Civil Rights Act for private associations. There's the public sphere where you're listing real estate publicly and looking for customers. And then there's private clubs, associations, intentional communities like we formed.
You know, it's interesting. I'm hearing you that you want this kind of purist European culture and that it doesn't necessarily define you as racist, but the people you attract, whether you are or not, may well be hardcore racists. I mean, fair?
I still don't really know what you mean by racist. Valuing race in itself, I don't think there's any moral problem with that. Mistreating people because of their race, there's a problem there, sure.
Well, I get it, but you say valuing people because of their race. A lot of people would say you're devaluing people because of their race.
Well, just like to be something, you have to not be other things. To value something, you have to value it above other things. So if you value, Jewish identity and the Jewish people.
Well, it's kind of like, okay, so this is one of the most absurd arguments, is to say like you can't value one thing over another thing. Or the argument I always like is when I get people online, and I think it's related to this, which is why I bring it up. I get people online who are like, you think your ideas are so much better than my ideas. And I'm like, yes. Yeah, I actually do. I think my ideas are better than your ideas. If I didn't think that my ideas were better than your ideas, then I would have your ideas and not my ideas. So yes, you're absolutely, completely correct that I think that my ideas are better than yours. And so I think it's kind of like the same thing here. It's like, yeah, I mean, in order to value one thing and to want to protect one thing, we have to intentionally keep out other things. And yes, we think that's a good idea. And if we didn't think it was a good idea, we wouldn't be doing it.
Then by default, you're going to value them above non-Jewish people.
Exactly.
So
like
if
Israel
you allowed a black person or say a Jewish person that wouldn't pass muster for you folks into that community, how would it adversely affect the community?
Well, that person would probably bring cultural priors from their own background that then we would adapt ourselves to consciously or unconsciously. I believe that culture is a deep, unspoken, complex language that's physical, explicit, verbal, cultural, rather artistic. And all of that is sensitive. It's not something that we rationally calculate. We're not rational individuals operating in isolation. We're parts of larger wholes, traditions, communities that move forward over generations. And I think blending in people from other traditions will alter that tradition that we're trying to preserve. And we don't want that altered. We want it preserved and to remain our own thing.
How is this community funded? My understanding is you have something like a GoFundMe. Can you explain that?
Well, the actual purchase of the property was funded by the community members themselves. And up to this point, almost everything that we've done has been our own initiative, our own resources. We've put up some fundraising campaigns, like a legal fundraiser that has been very successful, and that's necessary because many people would try to attack what we're doing as illegal. I've also raised funds to fund a tour to expand our projects, not just to full-time residential communities, but also recreational areas and community centers. I think it's good for the white community to have our own spaces, just like I think the Black community should have its own spaces, and the Jewish community clearly has its own spaces.
But the way you put that is that there is a Black community, a Jewish community, and so on and so on and so on. And a lot of people say that's not America anymore. That may have been America 70 years ago, but it's not today. America is a melting pot. You go to a place where I live, like Los Angeles, and there's no, I mean, there are pockets, but there's really no such thing as entire communities anymore. So that's not America anymore.
There are certainly Jewish community centers. Do you have a problem with that?
Well, I have a problem with exclusion, to be honest. I have a problem with exclusion and just fundamentally saying somebody is different because of their religion or the color of their skin. I mean, that's my personal opinion.
I don't like, again, like, I don't understand why we have this problem with exclusion. Like, I mean, like, human beings are tribal people. Some people are going to want to be around other people. And like, why do we always have to be like, everyone has to be accepted at all times? Like, no, actually, that's not real at all. If you try to create a community in which, and this is not just true based on race, it's like, if you try to create a community that's open to everyone, like literally everyone, have you ever been on the internet in your life? Has anyone ever been on Tim Pool's YouTube channel? Tim Pool's YouTube channel, no offense to the people who just watch Tim and like him, but if you look in the chat on Tim Pool's YouTube channel, it is a giant fuck off shit show. And Tim is almost entirely controlled by his audience and what his audience wants to hear. And again, I'm kind of like making like an analogy of this. It's like Tim Pool deliberately went out into the world in which he wanted to appeal to the broadest possible audience. And in the course of doing so, he created a community of people who are generating a giant fuck off shit show in which Tim is entirely controlled and beholden to the loudest population in his chat. Do I think that's a good idea? No. That's why we have an intentional community in my chat. We cultivate my chat. I filter undesirables out of my chat all the time. I am very purposeful about the rules of my chat and who is allowed to be here and who is allowed to chat and who is allowed to give me feedback and people who are not. It is a very intentional thing. And because of that, my chat is not a giant fuck off shit show. Now, am I ever going to appeal to every single person on the internet? No, absolutely not. There are people on the internet that hate me. There are people on the internet that literally live and breathe to hate me. But it's like, at least in my world, in my community, we've created something nice. And the people that fit into my chat that don't want it to be a giant fuck off shit show, they understand it. And you guys will actually see the chat is like the first, they're now the first people to defend when someone is acting outside of the rules. It's like the chat yells at them just as much as I do. That's because we have an intentional community. Now let's extrapolate that out to the broader society. If you create a society in which you are inviting in anyone and every single person is welcome, you are going to create a giant fuck off shit show in which no one is going to get along, in which the loudest people are always going to control everyone else, in which you are literally going to be held hostage to the worst elements of your community. I don't think that sounds like a good idea. This is how you create a degenerate society. The rule applies to YouTube channels. The rule also applies to the real world.
Well, we're different in those respects, certainly. And there's a lot more to race than just the color of our skin. Genetically, race leads to cognitive differences just as much as it leads to differences of appearance. So I think we should be free to either integrate or segregate ad libitum. We should be allowed to exercise our freedom as Americans to blend together, to go our own way, and we can also have our own spaces and meet each other in the middle.
Okay. Well, listen, I really appreciate you coming on. I don't agree with you, but we wanted to hear your point of view because this is happening in parts of the country. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm happy to talk about it.
All right. I thought that was actually a really good interview for him, if I was being honest about it. That's actually what made me interested in this. I was like, I saw his interview with TMZ and I was like, Eric is actually being a completely like reasonable person, and you might not agree with him, but he's actually being a completely reasonable person. And I think his explanations make sense. So after I think that Sky News thing aired, Eric got a massive amount of backlash, including from Arkansas's Attorney General. And I think this was last night, right? Can you guys believe it's almost August? Holy shit. I cannot believe it's almost August. What the fuck happened to this year? Anyway, the other night, Eric released a statement in response to all of the backlash that he's been getting, and I want to watch that next.
Over the last couple weeks, Return to the Land, our private association for people of European heritage who desire to preserve that heritage through peaceful, intentional communities, as well as our first physical community here in the Ozarks in Arkansas, have been under considerable attack in the mainstream media. There are now articles and videos on us with hundreds of thousands, millions of views created by people who are obviously hostile to what we're trying to do here. We believe that all Americans, regardless of their ethnic, racial, religious background, have the unalienable right to freely associate and peacefully assemble. We have the God-given right to form communities according to whatever values we hold dear. And the government does not have the right to tell free American citizens what values they have to live according to in their own private lives. We think that other groups have the same right that we do to form communities according to their values, according to their preferences. I don't have to agree with it, but they have the right to do it. Now, I'm not too concerned about the mainstream media attacks because when you go through the comments, actually, the majority of people are either neutral on us or they explicitly support what we're doing. I've been getting messages from Black Americans, Asian Americans, Hispanics, Muslims, who just want to reach out and say, we like what you're doing. We support what you're doing. Many people don't know about the Black, Indigenous, and people of color Intentional Community Council. You can find their website online. They list 30 communities based on ethnicity and race that the mainstream media has no problem with. There was a Black intentional community in Georgia. The mainstream media had no problem with it. The Muslim community in Texas, that's a little more controversial among conservatives, but they're being allowed to proceed. There are Native American reservations, and there are many Jewish intentional communities in this country.
See, I would argue, and listen, this is coming from someone my dog is having feelings about. My dog is Black. Don't mind my dog. My dog is Black, so he's having feelings about this. It's okay. He's a dog. We're going to allow him to bark and work out his feelings about it. What's really happening is my husband is about to come home, and so he's very excited because he thinks he's about to get a treat. That's actually what's going on. Black dogs, whatever. So I spent years, literally years, in the anti-critical race theory space, right? I was talking about critical race theory before most people even knew what it was. In the years since the original anti-critical race theory fight, most of the people who were leading that fight, I'm thinking of people, I'm going to call it out. Christopher Rufo. Christopher Rufo is now advancing this colorblind meritocracy bullshit. And listen, there was a time I wrote a book many years ago called Actively Unwoke, the ultimate guide for fighting back against woke insanity in your life. There's a lot of stuff I still stand by in that book. What I have since kind of rejected is this whole idea of colorblind meritocracy. I think colorblind meritocracy and that whole notion actually causes more problems than it solves. And for a couple of reasons. Number one, the right doesn't even believe in meritocracy. Like the right, there is no universe in which the right actually believes in meritocracy. And so you're not going to convince me that meritocracy is a solution to any of this, because the right literally doesn't believe in meritocracy. They go after people who are much better than them all the time. Like the right has a very midwit culture. So don't tell me that's even a real thing. But even more than that, I think telling people over and over and over and over and over again that they can't have conversations about race, I think that actually ends up creating more problems than it solves. I think forcing people to integrate with people that they may not want to. If you tried to force me to live in Detroit, I would sooner shoot myself in the fucking foot. Okay? So I look at like the so-called anti-woke community, the people who are fighting back against critical race theory in the first place. And I actually think, well, first of all, you haven't really solved anything because none of you to this day actually understand how critical race theory is taught. But I don't think that telling people they can't have conversations about race is a solution to the problem, because I think it actually just makes people much more militant in their ideas, and it makes them much less open to having a reasonable, nuanced conversation, I guess. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I actually think that Eric's idea would be better overall, because if everyone can be a part of a community that they want to be a part of, no one is forcing anyone to do anything. Like people are just like intentionally saying, I'm going to live over here, I'm going to live over there. Then you can, there are opportunities to come together to trade or to work together where it makes sense, or not if you don't want to do that too. This is a very libertarian idea. And if you try to force people into situations that they don't want to be in, that they don't think are healthy for them, literally no one's going to be happy.
So when other people do it, the mainstream media says nothing. When white people want to do it in a mostly white area,
well,
suddenly it's a huge...
Yeah, I mean, this is the other thing that, like, thank God I got out of that whole space years ago, because as it turns out, the anti-critical race theory movement was just a Zionist movement from the very beginning. All of the so-called anti-woke activists that I used to be around years ago are literally just rabid Zionists. They have no problem with Israel building a Jewish community that we all fund and pay for. They have no problem with Israel blowing up and killing Palestinians every single day. They will shill for another country before they ever come to the aid of Americans. And it's like, you know what? You're all just a bunch of fucking losers, and I don't want to be around you, like, at all in any way. It's so disappointing. So disappointing.
Issue. And the double standard is apparent. The public is actually on our side. That's the way it looks. Now, I'm more concerned when elected representatives and government officials decide to weigh in and condemn what we're doing, in some cases without even understanding what it is that we are doing. So Chelsea Rodriguez, she's not an elected official, but she's the communications director for the state Democratic Party of Missouri, said, if this hate group tries to relocate to Springfield, they shouldn't expect to be embraced. We were raised here, and we share the same respect for the Constitution and Second Amendment as our neighbors. Your hate has no place in our home. We are not a hate group. We have never expressed hate towards any ethnic group, racial group, religious group. We think they also have the freedom to preserve their own cultural traditions as they see fit. This is libel. This is an attack on our character that is totally unwarranted. And it's not the part of government officials to tell us as American citizens what values we should have. State Rep Jeremy Dean chimed in, white nationalist groups have no place in our country, especially not here. We are not a white nationalist group. We're not attempting to gain sovereignty on behalf of white Americans over the United States. We are white identitarians in that we value our identity and we want to preserve it. I would ask State Representative Jeremy Dean, is there...
Hang on, we got a super chat from Andre. Do you guys know how expensive defamation lawsuits are? You guys, every time you guys say, why don't you sue for defamation? Why don't you go look into how expensive defamation lawsuits are? Okay. And if you don't want to pony up to pay for it, then honestly, shut the fuck up. Do you think that there will be an exodus of people out of New York City because people won't want to be in communism? Nope. I mean, people cross entire countries and oceans to run away from communism towards capitalism. The people in New York City want to be communists, guys. The people in New York City are voting for a communist. They want to live in that society. So, do I think there's going to be I think there'll probably be a mass exodus of Jews. I think if there is a mass exodus of New York City when Zoran Mandami is elected, and he will absolutely be elected, there is nothing stopping him from being elected. The mass exodus that we will see will be Jewish people.
Anything that I could do as a white American citizen to preserve my racial and cultural identity that you would approve of? Is there anything at all that I can do to stop the decline of my population and preserve my way of life that you would authorize or condone? I'm not asking for supremacy over anyone else. Return to the Land is not a supremacist group. It's not a hate group. It's not even a white nationalist group. We are white identitarians. We value our identity and want to preserve it. That's not hate. That is love for your own people. State Rep Betsy Fogel said, "The blatant racism embraced by Mr. Orwell's group isn't welcome. Southwest Missouri is too beautiful to be ruined by a worldview so ugly. History has been very clear about the outcomes of groups like Mr. Orwell's who seek to leave behind others based on the color of their skin. I refuse to let history repeat itself in my hometown and would ask my colleagues to do the same." First of all, she wants to call us racists because we prefer being among our own people. We don't attack anyone else on the basis of their race. We are not depriving anyone else of their civil liberties or of opportunities. We're on our own private land. Individuals can have private land. We're not taking away anything from any other group or depriving them of opportunities. And I think on the historical front, she's just very narrow-minded. If you look at all of human history, the vast majority of societies have always been of single ethnic groups or single racial groups. There are a few examples of large empires that were multicultural, multiracial, but that basically always happened based on the imposition of force of a ruling imperial power. When people around the world, for all time, have been allowed to associate how they want, they group up in tribes on the basis of shared ancestry. Why wouldn't it be that way? It's a very ahistorical perspective that Ms. Fogel is taking. And Arkansas Attorney General Tim Griffin said, "Racial discrimination has no place in Arkansas or anywhere in a free society. These allegations raise all sorts of legal issues, including constitutional concerns. My office is reviewing the matter." In defense of Tim Griffin, he made this statement when he was first apprised of our existence as a group. He didn't know how we were organized. He didn't understand that we were a private, intentional community, not land developers selling off lots, which was how this story was initially portrayed in the early pieces. So I think when he investigates the matter, as he should, that's his responsibility, he will find correctly that what we're doing is lawful, peaceful, not a threat to commerce or the public good. Other groups already have communities on the basis of religion, ethnicity, race. As I mentioned earlier, all American citizens have equal status under the law, and if they're allowed to do it, we're allowed to do it. Moreover, we shouldn't conflate the restrictions on discrimination in the public domain that came about through the Civil Rights Act and Fair Housing Act with restrictions on our civil liberties as private individuals. The government cannot come in and tell me what values I'm supposed to privately have. And obviously, it's a contradiction in terms when he says racial discrimination has no place in a free society. So in a free society, we should not have the freedom to decide who we associate with? No, freedom means you're allowed to discriminate privately if you choose. Now, for the sake of managing commerce, which is the government's responsibility, in that public domain of public businesses, all Americans should have equal rights, equal opportunities. That's the law, and we're not violating that law. We're operating in the private domain, and I would be encouraged if these public officials and elected representatives understood the obligation they have, not just to promote their own ideology or morality that they believe in, but to preserve our legal order and the sovereign rights of American citizens to manage their own private lives how they choose. So if you're interested in Return to the Land, you can check us out at returntotheland.org. We're always working on expansion in different areas. We believe that white Americans all over the country deserve to have our own spaces if that's what we want to do in our private lives. So get involved, and thank you for listening.
All right, so that was his statement, which I thought, again, was actually a really reasonable statement. And the last thing I have for us to watch on this topic is, Jake Shields just released an interview with him yesterday. And so I just want to see what he had to say in his own words. And so that's what we're going to do for our last video. I want to thank everyone for coming out today. We still do have a bunch more content, so please make sure you have mounted the light. See, look, I yelled at one person earlier and I banned one or two people, and then look how nice the chat has been since I yelled at that guy earlier. Look at how nice everything has been. There's been no more bullshit. There's been no more nonsense. There's been no more, they hate white people. There's been no more none of that. See, this is why we have a cultivated, intentional community. Yeah, we are. This is Return to the Cult. It worked. We got out the riffraff. They were put through a hazing test. They did not survive. And yelling works. Bullying works. And that is how we maintain our intentional community. What time is Adam Green? Adam Green will be on at 5 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow. So again, people, make sure you come back for Adam Green and I are going to have a great talk tomorrow. We're not going to talk so much about like the whole Jesus thing. What I want to talk to Adam Green about is the amount of backlash that he's gotten from like Christians and people on the right and stuff like that, and kind of like what that experience has been like for him. I think it's going to be a really fascinating chat. So he will be on the channel at 5 p.m. tomorrow. So you guys can come back then and hang out, and it's just going to be nice. It's just going to be nice. We're not going to have any bullshit, no nonsense, stuff like that. Yeah. Eric is being reasonable and articulate, and therefore we must hate him.
White people could live, like land that you're trying to get yourself, and then you have all this crazy hate coming at you, which makes no sense. So why don't you just real quick tell them about the land you're trying to build, like what you're calling it, like what's your idea for your community is?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. We formed an intentional community in Arkansas for white European Americans. And
no, not in any way. Could you see the left implementing forced mixed race? So, no. The left doesn't care about race, guys. I know there are a bunch of you watching that really don't want to hear this, but I have been immersed in leftist subculture for years now. I've been undercover at their events. I've heard what they say when the camera's off. I have been following their trainings. I have watched thousands of hours of DEI training. The left does not care about race. I understand why you might think that they would. In some respects, to be really honest with you, in some respects, the left is actually more segregated than the right, because within socialist communities, you have the black socialists over here and you have the white socialists over here. Like, it's very, very segregated. Black socialists are their own thing. We very rarely even talk about black socialists because black socialists are extremely different than white socialists. Not to say there's not a crossover here and there. There are some black socialists that we watch, but in general, this is true at the Socialism Conference. There are whole black socialist contingents that don't really mix with white socialists all that well, and they don't actually think the white socialists even understand them. So, do I think that the left is going to force race mixing? In the 5 years that I've been listening to the left, I have never heard them talk about anything related to forced race mixing. What I have heard them talk about over and over and over and over and over again is how whiteness is capitalism and whiteness is caused by capitalism, and you can't fix racism without abolishing capitalism. There is literally a book called What is Anti-Racism and Why Does It Mean Anti-Capitalism? Angela Davis is on the record. Angela Davis is a Black communist. Angela Davis says you cannot solve racism without solving capitalism. You cannot even discuss the subject without talking about capitalism. That's what the left talks about. So I understand why people on the right think that the left is obsessed with skin color. I really, really do get it. But I promise you, if you actually listen to what they're saying, you're going to realize you guys are talking about two very, very different things. Now, that doesn't mean the left is our friend. The left is not our friend. They want to, destroy our entire society. That's not good. But like communities like Eric's would not be allowed to exist in a Marxist utopia. Like private property ownership does not exist in the Marxist utopia. So therefore, like communities like his are not going to be allowed because there's no private property ownership. Yeah, you got it. I don't mind answering questions when they're asked in good faith, guys. I just don't like the people who come back and whine and complain when they don't like the answer that they get. Yeah, well, so no, it's a different thing. So Black socialists absolutely know that when they're saying whiteness, they mean capitalism. They know it's the ownership class. They know it's the property owning class. So yes, in some respects they do, but at the same time, you have to understand white socialists are trying to abolish capitalism. So white socialists are still kind of on their team in that they're all trying to abolish capitalism, but Black socialists tend to have their own communities and their own kind of philosophical like areas within the overall leftist like spectrum. Well, what was BLM's biggest goal? BLM's biggest goal was abolish the police, defund the police. The police are considered to be the managers of private property. That means the managers of capitalism. The police are considered to be the upholders of capitalism. The reason BLM wanted to defund the police, abolish the police, was always about capitalism. The BLM riots destroyed a bunch of Black-owned businesses. If it was actually about skin color, they wouldn't have destroyed those businesses. They don't want Black people to be business owners. So that's why they did it. Because they get mad at capitalism. They're talking about capitalism. They hate capitalism. I don't know how else to explain this to you guys if you don't want to listen to the left. They don't get mad about white people. They don't give a flying fuck about white people. Most socialists are white people.
It's something that actually our founding fathers did when they came over here. They had their own values. They wanted autonomy from England, and they wanted to do their own thing. So we're under a government that doesn't really respect our traditional values, and we want to do.
Oh, you're confused. You're confused. You think that capitalism is an economic question. Capitalism is not an economic question to the left. Capitalism is an economic question and a cultural question. So they're anti-nationalist because capitalism means private property ownership. What do you need to have private property? You need borders. Borders are not just around your house. Borders are also around your country. The left doesn't believe in borders because borders are the upholding of capitalism. The capitalism is not just an economic model. It is a cultural model to the left.
Do our own thing among our own people. Jews have their own communities. Native Americans have their reservations. There's a Black intentional community in Georgia that was founded not too long ago. And that's all perfectly acceptable. But then when we want to do it, all of a sudden people get angry. And specifically Jews have gotten angry. There was a thread on Reddit, r/Jewish, about us, and they called on their members to go contact local government and media and activist groups, basically just trying to get us shut down.
Wow.
Yeah, it's turned out to backfire, and we've gotten a lot of attention.
The Jewish Reddit tried to get their community shut down. Jews want to have their own country in Israel, but some guy buys a plot of land in the mountains in Arkansas, and the Jews just can't handle it. Wow, you don't say. Oy vey.
New applicants, but I think what we're doing is really totally moral. We're minding our own business in a small town in Arkansas.
It's insane. I was planning to get into the Jewish element later, but let's hop right into this. We'll go back to the land. The fact that it's mostly Jews attacking you is insane. They're the only country to have their own ethno state. They have all these Jewish only schools and Jewish this. But I mean, people have been saying it for a while. I thought it was some kind of crazy conspiracy theory. And you started looking, who's pushing open borders? Not all, but mostly Jews, and all throughout the West. And then, sure enough, they're attacking.
Actually, the right wingers that are on here right now, you guys might appreciate this if you haven't heard me talk about this before. Right after October 7th, I watched a bunch of presentations from leftists where they were trying to redefine what anti-Semitism means. Because, of course, there are all these leftist groups that are being called anti-Semitic and they don't like it. So leftist groups were trying to figure out, how do we define anti-Semitism? This one guy I watched, he was a Jewish studies professor. This is within the University of California system. I did a post about it at the time, so you can find the clip over on my Substack. If you just look up like Jewish or anti-Semitism in my Substack, it'll come right up. I found a video of this Jewish studies professor basically saying that the new definition of anti-Semitism should be that if you are against brown people migrating into the United States, even if those brown people are not Jewish, then you are anti-Semitic. So I think that the right-wing dissidents watching might actually appreciate that. One of the new definitions of anti-Semitism that they're trying to push is if you are opposed to unfettered immigration of Black and brown people into the United States, you are anti-Semitic, even if those Black and brown people are not Jewish. I swear to God, I have the clip on my Substack. You can look it up.
I went and helped Patriot Front yesterday do disaster relief, to help. Their kids had died up there. It was a hard day's work. I drove 2.5 hours to go dig stuff out, and the ADL attacked them. And they didn't attack me by name, but they attacked them.
Do you guys want to see
helping,
the clip?
They've been.
Do you guys want to see the clip real quick? I can find it. Like there seem to be people shocked about this. Okay, let me find this clip real quick. It's short. I think you guys might just like to see it. Let's see. Is this it? Yeah. Check this out. Okay. Here is the link that you can go to where you have the clip. Okay. Anti-Semitism redefined as beyond the Jew. You can't make this stuff up, honestly. I posted about this on March 30th, 2024. Here is this the clip? Hang on. Okay, so there are two clips in this. The first one, okay, so in this video, he argues it is anti-Semitic to be against the immigration of Black and brown migrants into the United States, even if those migrants are not Jewish, specifically saying that the rationale is that anti-Semitic can apply to more than just Jews.
Larger question, I think, is how her anti-Semitic inheritance interacts with the anti-immigrant agenda that remains her political bread and butter. If not an anti-Semitism without Jews exactly, hers is also an anti-Semitism about more than just Jews. Historian Enzo Traverso has described today's right-wing populism as a post-fascist.
What? An anti-Semitism that's about more than just Jews? Hers is also an anti-Semitism about more than just Jews. What does that mean? I don't know the answer to that. I'm actually asking. What the fuck does that mean? If not an anti-Semitism without Jews exactly, hers is also an anti-Semitism about more than just Jews. Do they mean like immigrants? Let's listen again.
Dismissing the Nazi gas chambers as a detail of history? Perhaps. The larger question, I think, is how her anti-Semitic inheritance interacts with the anti-immigrant agenda that remains her political bread and butter.
Oh.
If not an anti-Semitism without Jews exactly, hers is also an anti-Semitism about more than just Jews.
Wait, so if you're against immigration now, even if it's not Jews, you're still anti-Semitic? All right. It's not just about Jewish people anymore to be anti-Semitic. All right, I'm not going to play the whole clip. It's 19 minutes long, but that's basically it. They're arguing in that clip that it is about like anti-Semitism. It goes beyond the Jews if you're just against Black and brown immigration. There's also another clip where he argues that if you are critical of the Frankfurt School and critical theory, you are also anti-Semitic because the Frankfurt School was made up of mostly Jewish intellectuals, and therefore, ergo, if you criticize anything that comes out of the Frankfurt School, you are anti-Semitic. So you guys can watch the full clip if you want to, but I thought you'd be interested in that.
They're out there all week. I only did a day's work. They're out there all week helping people, and the ADL is bashing them. The ADL wasn't out there. I didn't see the fucking ADL out there. And you have these scum attacking them for white people out working. And it felt, a big group of people out helping, giving back to the community. And Jews are saying you can't do this. Jews are saying you can't have your own land, and they have their ethno state. And I don't hate all Jews, but I can fucking notice patterns. It's like, I just don't know. I don't know what to make of it.
It's a clear double standard. And, some people think it's because they, as an ethnic and religious minority here, feel insecure. And so they don't want the majority turning against them, especially when they are a very prominent minority, very influential in politics and media and banking and things that are impactful on society. So it's happened in the past, obviously, pogroms against them. They've been expelled from different countries. So now they are very defensive in their mentality, to the point where they start doing things that earn the ire of the people around them simply because they're so defensive and protective of their own interests. They end up depriving other people of their rights.
Yeah, it seems they're not able to look in a mirror and self-respect. They have so much bad PR right now. Instead of them stepping back and be like, oh, let's let these people go out and have their white community. Oh, this is great that Patriot Front's out helping people when there's 170 missing people, dead children. As a father, it's just driving by some of those like memorial. It was just one of the saddest things I've ever seen. To attack people that are helping, to attack you that want to build a own community. You're not being like, oh, I hate Jews, I hate Black people as far as I know, and you want to build a community, and you put a bunch of Jews think you can't do this. Like, how are they not able to self-reflect and be like, this is not good PR?
Some of them do realize that they should have the same.
No. The left does not do this to confuse anyone. The left does this because they speak a different language than you that they learned in academia. It's a different language. They're not intentionally sitting around going, I want to confuse right-wingers today. That's not what they're doing. They just have a different culture than you do. They have different values. They have a different language that you don't understand. That's why they're doing it.
Standards for everyone else. I think we would all be better off if we acknowledged that individualism is a core problem in our society. We lack community. And part of it is this push against white Americans celebrating our own identity. The line is that we have oppressed other groups. And so in order to eradicate white privilege and all this inequity,
capitalist
white people
privilege,
can't maintain their own identity.
Wrong.
But then that opens up a whole other can of worms. What happens to all these whites now who are atomized?
The left generally doesn't give a flying fuck what the right says because the left does not consider the right to actually be opposition to them. So they don't actually care. They don't care what these guys are talking about. They very rarely even talk about people on the right. So no, the right is the left is not frustrated that the left or that the right doesn't understand because the right is not a factor in their decision-making process pretty much at all. They complain about them a little bit when it's in their interest to do so, but like mostly the left hates Democrats and liberals far more than they hate conservatives or even dissident right-wingers. Like Democrats and liberals bother them significantly more.
To have no ground in anything. What's their sense of meaning in life? There are a cascade of social problems that I think at root emanate from our being deracinated from our own sense of self. Now, I think you should strike a balance and we shouldn't just domineer over other people, but you have to have self-respect and a conception of who you are and where you're coming from in order to move forward. And Jews should be able to recognize that more than anyone because they've gone through so many transformations of how their identity related to the people around them. They've been attacked so many times.
Real.
But I guess a history of trauma does remove the ability to really think clearly. And I think there's something too in us versus them mentality that can even be good. It unifies people against another, and it's been good for Jews in a certain respect, but taken to an extreme.
Successful by helping each other, by working together as a unit. So you could argue that it's good for the Jews, but it's not good for America. You hit several really important points. One, self-respect. We have to have self-respect. You know, I hate white people who don't. I mean, I'm not a white nationalist, but I'm very pro-white. And I think everyone who's white should be pro-white. When I see these white people like washing black people's feet and stuff after BLM, it's just absolutely disgusting. You should be proud of who you are. And then community, having community. Community has completely collapsed in white cultures, white society. And what do we see? ODs, suicides, depression. Like suicides and ODs, most of us have probably lost friends to that. I know I've lost several friends to both. And it's just devastating. So it's like there's major problems within the white culture, and it needs to be fixed. People like you are actually working to try to fix it. You look, oh, what can I do? You're not potatoing, like, how can I help white people? So it's like I said, it's a complex issue, but I think that's, you know, those are two of the biggest issues. Like let's go like the self-respect, like you said. Like there's probably nothing worse. No other races disrespect themselves except for white people. Have you noticed? There's been like polls where every race looks positive to themselves except white people, they put a negative view. I think that's a big problem.
Yeah, it's been trained into us. I mean, if you went to public school, you heard these narratives about colonialism, white privilege, exploitation. And a lot of us have really internalized that into our self-concept. And if anything, we have like a negative self-concept of our race. And I don't think you can be healthy if that's the case. So
no, there's this video. I think this video, there's a guy just standing on a line.
Guys, if you're interested, I see people in the chat saying that they're interested in how they've redefined words. So if you're interested in learning more about this, I do actually have some resources that can help you start to understand. And just so people know, when I'm studying the left, and again, I've been deeply immersed in leftist subcultures for almost 5 years now. I've gone undercover at their events. I'm in their trainings all the time online. I spend almost all my time listening to these people. What I've done is I put together a couple classes that people can take to actually go through some of the clips that I've got, so that you can actually see for yourself what the left is saying in these trainings, so that you don't always have to, you never have to take my word for it. If I say the left believes something, I have video to back it up. So where I would start is, I just did this training a couple weeks ago. This is an 1.5 hour long course. It's totally free. You can find it on the Substack. It's called Re-Education and Anti-Communist Introduction to the Far Left. You can watch the video in your own time. You can take in all the clips. There's probably about a dozen clips in this as a good introduction to what the leftist language actually means. And again, I will show you them saying it. So it's not a secret. The left understands this. It's the right that does not understand it. So that's a good place to start. And if you want more information, I have a whole 4-hour class called How to Speak Socialist, which again, it goes through many more clips because it's 4 hours long. So you're going to get a much more in-depth view of all of this stuff. And so if you want more information, you can do that. We do Socialism Saturday every Saturday at 6 p.m. on the channel. We often watch leftists throughout the week. We're going to be watching a leftist organizing call tomorrow at 8 p.m. We're going inside a DSA national organizing call. We're probably going to be watching a reproductive justice presentation on Thursday. So we watch this stuff all the time. If you ever have any questions about what the left believes or what they think or what they're doing, I will answer it for you and I will show you video of it. We're just not doing that today because we're watching this other stuff. But you can always find it over on my Substack, which is Karlyn, KARLYN.substack.com. Click on the How to Speak Socialist section, and it's the 2 pinned videos right at the top. And that will give you more information about all this stuff. BLM supporters used to tell me that my people built America back in 2020. What did that mean? It means that they believe that racism started when slaves were imported to the country as a part of slavery. Slavery, of course, is private property ownership of people. When the left says capitalism, they mean private property ownership. Slavery was private property ownership. When the left talks about racism, they're talking about systemic racism, the system that upholds racism, or institutional racism, the institution that upholds racism. In both of those circumstances, they're talking about capitalism. So no, did BLM ever support Black people? No, they don't give a fuck about Black people. BLM did millions of dollars of property damage to Black-owned businesses. They called Larry Elder the blackface of white supremacy. Like, they hate Black people that don't agree with them. So it was never about Black skin color. It was always about, are you a communist or socialist? Do you want to overthrow capitalism, or do you not want to overthrow capitalism?
Like white and Black people, and like, if you think negatively of yourself or positively, like to what level, 1 to 5, and all of like the Black people went to like the highest point, and all the white people walk backwards thinking negative of themselves. It's just like, what the fuck?
And it's not like that's an incidental part of who you are. Like, you're never going to change your race. You might change other things about yourself, but your race is never going to change. So you have a negative concept about that. That's something essential to yourself that makes you uncomfortable. And that's just not a recipe for success in life. And, you know, look at the life outcomes of white Americans. They have been declining. We're earning less than other ethnic groups. We're not working together. Now, you don't have to hate other ethnic groups to recognize that there's a problem in white America, and only we can solve it. So we have to look at what are the things that we can actually proactively do. Well, we don't have communities. At least we can do that. We can build communities for ourselves. We can build community centers, just like in many Black communities. They have community centers that are explicitly for their community. Jewish community centers exist for that same reason. So it's not like we have to do something radically new. We have to look at the playbook through history. How does a people build their health? And it's by getting together on a regular basis and working towards common goals. And for us, that's developing our land together and developing our norms. And, you know, we have community dinner.
Do I think there are Black ethno-nationalists within socialist movements? I don't have any evidence of that. And again, I've been undercover at some of the biggest far left events in the country. Like, I don't have any evidence of that.
And it's a day-by-day kind of process. The problem with online activism is you can't do that day to day without staring at your screen all day.
No, that's a problem. You have to go and do real world things. And a lot of us are probably all guilty of doing things too much online. But a lot of these guys that only do things online, they become like losers. They become obsessed with it. You have to go out and make real world change.
And by the way, guys, if someone presents me evidence that's actually real evidence, and what by real I mean primary source evidence, I don't take secondary source evidence at all, then I'm open to changing my mind. So if you guys disagree with what I'm saying and you have primary source evidence from the left, not something that you made up or not something that you got from a right winger, I will look at it and factor it into my analysis. And if you guys convince me of something using primary source evidence, the primary source evidence is what it is. I don't make judgment calls about what it is. I only report what is actually being said and done in the real world. So thank you for the super chat. Are you going to watch Nick's podcast? Nope. I am not going to watch Nick's podcast. And it's no shade on Nick. I adore Nick personally. I am sick of the groypers. I don't want their shit. And we're going to watch someone else today that's not Nick Fuentes. I have watched Nick Fuentes countless times on this channel. It's never been appreciated by the groypers when I do it. They constantly give me shit online. They're going to say, we don't want you watching him anyway because you don't have any viewers. They're going to make some excuse. They're going to call me fat and ugly all over the internet. So I do appreciate the money, but no, we will not be watching Nick today because I've had enough. I've had enough. What are primary source leftists? Anything you get directly from them. Primary source evidence is stuff you get directly from them. So it could be trainings, it could be events that they've done, it could be books that they've written, it could be an interview or something when you hear the words coming from their mouth. It's not secondary though. It's not a right-winger's interpretation of the left. It's not right-wing propaganda. What you guys like to do is you like to make your own propaganda, which is fine, but I'm not going to accept your propaganda as evidence of what the left says. I also only look at things in context. So if you take a clip out of a video, I'm going to say, I want to see the full video. I don't judge based on a 2-minute clip. I want to see the full video. I have no thoughts on Patriot Front. I don't really know that much about them. At least to a degree, BLM Seattle did have BIPOC exclusive events. A white person facilitated BIPOC zone. Okay, yeah. but the meetings were all about Marxism. So you're telling me it wasn't about skin color, it was about Marxism. You're telling me that a white person was involved in it. Oh, so it wasn't about skin color.
And like yesterday, like I drove out, you know, to meet the Patriot Front guys. I had met a couple of them before, but instantly I was like, taken in as like a brother. So I was working hard along these guys, but just working along guys that are treating you so good, helping each other work, you're assisting each other. Something felt, I haven't done a hard day's work in years, you know. It's kind of embarrassing. I've been kind of successful. So it's like, I've hired some Mexicans to do it, half joking, but it's like, it's kind of embarrassing that like I pushed off the whole hard work. And it's like, oh, I'm actually working hard, but you're working light beside these brothers and everyone's treating each other like a brotherhood. And then you're holding each other to a standard, you know. I'm like, oh, taking a little break. And he's like, oh, should I ever go back to work? I don't want to look lazy, you know. And Thomas, the head guy.
Okay. Again, I've already answered this question for you. A primary source is a primary source. It is directly from the left. A video of that, it doesn't have to be from a specific person. That's not what I'm asking for. I'm asking for evidence that comes directly from the left with full context. So no clips out of context. I want to see the full video. No pages that you've taken out of context. No nothing out of context. I want to see the original primary source. Where did they say it in the real world? Where did it happen in the real world? What is the full recording? What is the full context? No clickbait, no outrage porn, just facts.
He's out there busting his ass, being a good leader. So seeing this, having a community makes everything so much easier.
Yeah, absolutely. And people will criticize it saying, oh, you're running away. We can't retreat. But if you look at the movements that have changed the world, going way back, like the Pythagoreans, they created communities, and those communities developed their own norms and customs. They had their own kind of moral code. They invented most of ancient Greek math in these few communities for a couple hundred years. Or the Jews, their synagogues. They built intentional communities around the Mediterranean, and over the last 2,000 years, even without a state, they've become the most powerful ethnic group on earth. Or in Pakistan, you know, the madrasas, these school community centers they developed in opposition to British colonialism, that allowed them ultimately to gain autonomy.
All right. Do you want to know why? Do you want to know why that's not the left that you see? Average Person said the left doesn't have a centralized leadership. They operate in a highly decentralized manner. And this person who is brand new, who doesn't understand the left at all, says that isn't the left that's being portrayed to the public. Do you want to know why that's not the left being portrayed to the public? Because none of you assholes understand what primary fucking sources are. Do you want to know why that's not the left being portrayed? Because you guys fuck this up all the fucking time. You take things out of context, you twist meanings, you don't even understand what you're looking at in the first place. The reason that's not the left being portrayed to the public is because you assholes are making up evidence, twisting it out of context, making it mean something it doesn't mean, and then you're presenting that to the public and you're saying, pinky swear, trust me, bro. This is why I have to be very specific with you guys, because you've done this to me over and over and over again, where you say, Karlyn, don't you realize this? And then I say, can you provide me primary source evidence of that? And you don't even fucking know what primary source evidence is. So we have now explained this to you several times. The reason you are confused is because you are not consuming primary source evidence. That is why we only use that on this channel, and your opinions about that do not matter. Your feelings about that do not matter. The clickbait bullshit that you have consumed is your fault. And when you look at the primary source evidence, you're going to realize how much you don't fucking understand. My God, I knew exactly where it was going. If you're talking about Adam Green, I'm literally having him on the channel tomorrow. If you're not talking about Adam Green, I don't know who you're talking about.
And that influenced the Mujahideen and the Taliban, and the Taliban defeated us. Yep. It's not running away to have a networked structure where we can train together, learn together, pool our resources. This is how you would have to organize if you did want to just challenge the government. Now, I think that's a terrible idea. The government is actually not a wholly negative
force in the world. I think there's a lot of good that America can do on the world stage. I want to see a strong America. I don't want to challenge the American government. We just have to reach some kind of mutual respect. And of course, they're not going to respect us if we have no power. How do you build up that power? You network together and you work together.
Hey guys, I'm a self-funded podcast. So if you want to support me and the work I'm doing, go to fightbackpodcast.com and you can buy cool merch like the shirt I'm wearing about the Rhodesia, Dave's franchise, save you money. Then you're going to come back, build stronger communities, because it seems pretty clear we're not going to vote our way out of this disaster we're in. But, before we first got in politics, I was pushing, vote, I'm going to vote for Trump, blah, blah. And then you can see what a fucking joke that's become, I mean, I don't know your opinion.
Yeah, real Jake Shield.
It's been a total disaster.
Well, yeah, I mean, he did secure some money for a border wall. We'll see if that actually gets built. If that border wall is physically built, in my own mind, walked away happy from their presidency. I didn't expect that much going in. The other side of it, though, is he is relatively conservative in his appointment of judges. And so as a result, I think if return to the land is challenged in the next 3 years, it's probably the best time for us to be challenged. And so the fact that they're attacking us now, they're really, in a way, attacking us at our strongest. Even though we're small now, the cultural climate is with us.
You have a lot of support online.
Yeah.
That's why I had multiple people like DMing me being like, hey, interview this guy. So it just shows you how much attention that got, And you're pretty unknown.
I think it's a key issue that can go beyond, even if you don't want to build intentional communities yourself or participate in them directly. And I think, there are ways to do that without actually moving onto raw, undeveloped land like we did. But even if you just want to engage in the culture war, this is an issue where we clearly have the moral high ground. So if we continue pushing this, and that's what I'm planning to do, I'm going to tour around the country and organize more of these land buys.
Here's the thing. I actually do agree with him that he does have the moral high ground. I get really frustrated with the situation when the framing of it is, we have to do this because the left hates white people and we're taught to hate white people, when that's not what's going on. And I just don't understand why these people can't have an honest conversation about what the left actually believes and what the left actually says. This is the most frustrating part of this whole thing. If I was talking to someone that wanted to live in an intentional whites-only community, which I have absolutely no problem with, it's their life, they can do what they want, and that person was actually willing to have a real conversation about what the left actually believes and dismiss this bullshit notion that they hate white people. It's the most juvenile fucking thing. Because if you can't wrap your head around the fact of what the left actually says and what they actually do and what they actually believe based on thousands of hours of their own video, and again, I'm not saying clips out of context, because clips out of context are exactly the problem. Clips out of context are why none of these people actually understand what the left believes. If you want to build an intentional whites-only community, you do actually have the moral high ground for that. You do actually have so go do it. Who the fuck cares? But the intellectual dishonesty about it is what pisses me off more than anything, because you should be able to maintain the intellectual high ground of building whatever community you want to build, and also be able to say the left wants to abolish capitalism. And guess what? The left wanting to abolish capitalism, which means the complete abolition of all private property, that's going to fuck up your plans to build your intentional whites-only community. So why can't you be opposed to the left? Because they want to take away your private property. They want to take away your parental rights over your kids. Parental rights are considered to be a form of private property ownership under the left. They say this all the time. They say, fuck parental rights. Parental rights are private property. We want to abolish all parental rights. Why can't we have an actual conversation about the left? Because everything the left is doing and pushing is going to destroy what he's doing anyway. But it's not because they hate him for being white. It's because they don't like him owning private property.
Or community centers and things like that. So our enemies will have no choice but to address it and highlight this issue, because I think this is really a dividing line, a battleground.
You want to know why people who watch my content don't trust the far right? Because they're intellectually dishonest about this issue. It's like, we might even be on your side and agree about some things, but if you continue to lie about what the left is doing, then you call everything else you say into question. The fact that Andrew Wilson is too much of a pussy to debate me on this, by the way, you guys know that, right? Andrew Wilson, I said, Andrew, why don't we debate on whether or not the left hates white people? He chickened out like a pussy and called me all sorts of names. I documented it all. You can find the video on my YouTube channel. But it's like, if you can't be intellectually honest about this question, then why should I believe anything else coming out of your mouth?
We can win, no problem.
I think it's so clear you have the moral high ground. That's why I contacted you instantly, and by chance this interview fell together. I won't get into the details, but it fell together really conveniently, but maybe not in Texas.
Okay, sorry. I need to address this. I figured there was a difference between this private property and personal property, and that what they're doing is closer to personal property. No. Private property is bourgeois property. It's property that you can use to create private personal wealth. That means your ability, when the left says capitalism, private property ownership, what they mean is your ability to own a home, your ability to own land, your ability to own an apartment rental that you rent out as a landlord, your intellectual property, your ability to own a private business, whether that private business is big or small. And they do mean parental rights over your kids because they consider parental rights to be a form of private property. When they're talking about personal property, they're talking about things like your cell phone or your computer or yarn or your car or your pets or things like that. These are things that you own, but you are probably not going to use to create a significant amount of private personal wealth that is exclusive to you. That's the difference.
It was so obvious that you were morally correct. I was just like in shock. I didn't even realize it was people were pushing it, and people I've been arguing with a little bit, which is back to trying to tell you can't have white communities. Like, what? You're building yourself. And I think this does need to be fought. This is so important. We do have to have these fights. And back to Trump, by the way, I do think he was the better of the two options. I just think he sucks still too.
Yeah.
Separate subjects. But so let's just get a little back into, let's explain a little more detail, what your short-term, long-term intentions are for this.
Well, sure. In the short term, I had a fundraising drive to allow me to do this tour, organizing recreational properties, campgrounds, things of that nature, so that even in states where this would be basically impossible to pull off at scale, we can have something. Right now, we don't have spaces for ourselves. We need our own spaces that will be ours, white lands that'll be in our community over generations, so that we can every day build towards something, that we're all going to share in, that our kids and grandkids will share in. So the plan is to go around and organize these land buys. There's a lot of interest all over the country. Thousands of people have reached out and expressed interest in doing this. And beyond that, we have to push the legal battle of allowing for these intentional communities to exist. One of the reasons we did it in Arkansas is, of course, it's a very red state. So if our case goes to trial at any point, we're very likely to have a judge who's on our side. Now, if you did this in San Francisco, you would probably...
I lived in San Francisco for a while.
Yeah, you'd see a different outcome. So we have to gradually push from the more conservative areas to the more liberal areas. Start with smaller projects where you can't do a full-fledged intentional community, and then build towards that and normalize it where it's not something that's shocking to people. I've talked with several ordinary coworkers, family members about what we're doing, and no one has morally objected.
Dottie girl, be safe. We can't lose you. I hope everything works out okay. Wow, that's crazy.
Just seemed surprised, like the idea had never really occurred to them.
Yeah, we're not in a free country if you can't decide who you live around.
Right.
We're not free if you can't decide, I wouldn't want to live around white people. Right. For me personally, I have no problem living around. There's certain people I don't want to live around, but I have non-white people living around me. They don't bother me, But I guess they're the ones that have a little more money. But you live in some of these communities, there's a reason white flight, they say. There's a reason why that happens. White people don't randomly just start moving away when people start moving there. It's because crime shoots up. There's realities to this shit. I know you get called racist to talk about it, but if you know, I'm not trying to bash black people, but when a lot of black people start moving in, crime always goes up. That's a reality. If your kids go to a school, I had friends that were poor, sending their kids to a mostly black school, they're getting beat up and harassed all the time. These are realities you have to look at. Other races look at these realities, so it's for us to not be able to have to choose who we live around, then we're not a free society.
Yeah, you have freedom of association, except in the workplace and in your neighborhoods.
it's so where exactly do we have freedom of association?
Yeah, I'm self-employed, so I can decide who the fuck I fire. It's funny, people try to get some of one of my main employee fired for like his tweets. It's like, do you know who the fuck he works for? Even when occasionally he'll say something I don't agree with, but it's like, I'm not going to tell him what he can and can't tweet. Like, you tell him to tweet. It's like, who am I to tell the shit I tweet? You want me to call my employee and tell him he can't tweet it? Like, if you looked at my Twitter, how hypocritical would that be?
Yeah, I think the problem is that our idea of what freedom is very individualistic. It's all about what choices can I make as a consumer between different options. And we're not thinking about what we're building on an intergenerational basis. You know, if you want to associate with people of different races and cultures and that enriches your life, fine, as an individual. But the only kind of self-sustaining collective that moves through the generations is an ethnic or racial one. Blending everyone together, the next generation will be totally different than the first generation. That continuity requires common race, and that's been the case for all of history. You know, it's something we have to reconcile. This is how human nature works, and we're not individuals. We are parts of collectives.
Yeah, this is something I hadn't thought about until really recently. When I started my podcast, I like talking to controversial figures of all different ideas. People don't necessarily believe with, and just kind of hearing their ideas. And when I talked to a few white nationalists, that's when it really struck me. But wow, white countries are dying and dying quick. There's not much time, because I never really given that much thought. And like, there's not a lot of time. And I'm not anti any of the race, but like the idea that like white people could become extinct, to not have a white country, that really kind of bothered me. That's why they don't want these people having conversations. Like the most censored people I've done were David Duke and Thomas Russo, and they were like, they were not hateful at all. They're pushing, when you listen to them, it makes sense. I think that's why they're trying to censor these guys. These guys that are yelling, pushing hateful stuff, they're not censoring those guys to the same level.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And they've highlighted and sometimes put in plants who talk that way.
Yeah.
There are many, and it's just a reality of the world we live in. There are federal assets that infiltrate these movements and try to steer them towards unproductive directions. So, I mean, how do you respond to that as an individual? You have to really believe in the power of discourse and being willing to talk to one another. Because
I don't believe that it's only the feds that are pushing these movements in unproductive directions. I absolutely do think there's some of that. But I also think that, listen, again, and I say this as someone who actually is rather sympathetic to his ideas, there is a metric ton of absolute toxicity within this movement. And that's not all coming from feds. And I understand that when men especially feel like they are being pent up about something, or they're being controlled by something, and they don't feel like they have an outlet to express themselves, and they feel like people are going to, like, I understand that men can have special feelings about that, and repressing that sort of stuff can make them be toxic and angry and ridiculous and all those things. I totally get it. But I also think that they would probably get a lot more people on their side if they and I'm not saying his community specifically, I'm saying in this whole white identitarian sphere in general, there are some groups that are more toxic than others, but I think that people are being foolish if they think that the most toxic elements aren't going to be exploited and aren't going to be the things that people remember about them. I've had many conversations with people who, I mean, are flat out like, yeah, I'm a racist. Like, and here's what I believe, and here's why I believe it. And I've had many cordial conversations with people like that. Even if I don't agree with everything they say, I'm like, okay, well, I understand your perspective on this. And yeah, some things you say make sense and all that stuff. But then the reasonable people are completely drowned out by the sheer volume of toxic assholes within the movement that make it kind of impossible to aggressively support them, because it's like, I mean, it's kind of the same reason why there's a reason why I'm not watching Nick Fuentes' interview with this guy today. The reason is not Nick Fuentes himself. I love Nick Fuentes. The reason is the fucking groypers that make it impossible for me to support Nick. And so it's the same thing with, like, you have this guy actually seems like a person. It's not just the groypers. It's no. It's not just the groypers. I have experienced many groups that are way more toxic than the groypers. There are many people that are way worse than them. I'm just saying that is one of the groups I have an issue with. But like this guy, he seems like a perfectly nice guy. Sadly, there are a lot of people with groups in this whole, like, you know, kind of like pro-white sphere who are not like him.
everyone gets wrapped up in ego and wants to stay separate, well, then of course you can't determine who's a good faith actor because you won't even talk to the guy, you know? So, you know, I appreciate that you're reaching out and talking to people that you don't fully agree with. You'll talk to
Then
communists.
you must be brand new, and I would suggest you go check out the No White Guilt community because they're a toxic group of fucking assholes. Start there. Start with No White Guilt. Start with everyone who supports No White Guilt. Starts with everyone around No White Guilt, the people who watch his videos, the people who comment on his videos, the people who he follows on Twitter, all that stuff. Start there. I've been around the Groypers. I was at AFPAC. I was at the Groypers party after AFPAC. I've been around the Groypers for 2 years. The Groypers are nowhere near the toxicity level of No White Guilt, and it's not even close.
No, exactly. That's funny because I'll be accused of white nationalist, but then I talk to communists, black nationalists. So clearly, I'm just talking different ideologies. But I'll admit, some of the white nationalist stuff has made a little sense. I'm still not a white nationalist, but there's been some points that I'm like that really struck me, like that. Oh shit, we are losing our communities. We aren't allowed to have this. So and that's why I think they really don't want this conversation had.
Yeah. Well, it was common sense until about 70 years ago. 100 years ago, the average person believed mostly the same stuff that I believe, maybe apart from like Platonism and my metaphysical views. But yeah, I mean, in an open discourse, our ideas will come to the top because through all of history, that's what has come to the top. Other cultures have the same views that we have of our culture, of their own cultures. It's just human nature to be part of these collectives and to care about their fate. The idea that your race is going extinct and you shouldn't even care, it's really remarkable that so many white Americans just have this nonchalant attitude about it. And I think it's because of this indoctrination they receive.
Media and school push. Yeah, I don't think it's random. I think media and schools just pushed it on us.
They're evil for being white. But the opposite is the case. I mean, white people have done such great things for the world in the technology, science, philosophy that we've spread. We're the most charitable race. If we were gone from this planet, it would be a tragedy, you know, and we should have some self-respect and recognize that it's not just good for us that we survive. It's good for everyone else too.
No, exactly. And the fact that you can't go have your own community. So do you have like how big are you trying to get a community, or do you have no idea? You're kind of just trying to start it and see where it goes, or do you have like an exact plan of what you're trying to do with it?
Well, we settled rural Arkansas partly because we want to have a agricultural, rural community. So the first community is not going to grow to be some big metropolis, but we do want many communities around the country. We want options available for people in the Northeast, in the Pacific Northwest, in Appalachia. We have projects going on.
Lots of them going, not necessarily run by you, but like where you're kind of affiliated.
Yeah, affiliated under our private association. I think we do need to work together and build up funds together for legal research, because it's easy to go wrong and get yourself sued trying to do something like this. The Fair Housing Act at face value prohibits.
Yeah, I guess I didn't realize that so I have a house. I can't choose who I rent my house to an extent.
If you have multiple apartment units, past a certain point, you don't get to choose. And you can't restrict the sale of your house to a person of a certain race.
That's right,
it's an open market. So to get around that, so to speak, or to have our own intentional community, we have a private association that you have to join. You have to be of European heritage, share some of our basic values, whether it's Christian or pagan. Europeans have certain values in common. And then if you pass that step, then you're eligible to buy into the particular community. And we don't own our land. We don't sell real estate. We formed a corporation that owns the land, and then we buy shares in that corporation. It's the same way Orania in South Africa does it. Even Israel, a lot of the land in Israel is owned by a trust or development corporation and then leased to people. It's a way of having freedom to decide who is admitted to the community and who's not. But if we didn't do that legal research, and if we didn't continue to do it, then we'd get caught up on some code or other, and we would get fined, and we would set bad precedent. So I think building a robust legal research team over time requires a nationwide association. We don't want to do this all in isolation, scattered, because more of us are going to get in trouble if we try to do that.
So crazy that you need attorneys and stuff to be like, oh, I just want a little white commune and like have my own little land. It is smart though. It sounds like putting it so people hopefully can have it long term, like your children, your grandchildren, thinking a little ahead. And white people were really bad at doing that. other group, they look like, generations ahead.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, the Chinese, in their geopolitical maneuvers, they're not thinking in years or decades, they are thinking in centuries. And I think that's why they're positioning themselves pretty well. I think we have to adopt a similar mentality, but on an individual basis. We're responsible for the fate of our communities that we're contributing to. And so many of us just don't have a community at all. And it may require some sacrifice in your lifestyle. If I just cared about how I was going to live or how me and my kids were going to live, I wouldn't be doing this.
Yeah.
There are easier ways, but we have to think, what are my grandkids going to experience, my great grandkids, and what am I building towards? And I think that's a big part of meaning in life and psychological well-being. You have to have a sense that you are part of a common project towards a common destiny. And if that's lacking, there's going to be a hole in your life that you can't fill.
I think humans, we have to have some kind of purpose and some kind of community. When you don't have that, you're not happy.
So something that is striking to me about like dissident right-wing groups is, again, and again, there are many people I don't agree with on the dissident right. But one of the things that I have noticed is that they're able to articulate their values and their vision in a way that many people just can't. Like, if you talk to like an average Democrat or an average normie lefty or something like that, they can't articulate their values and their vision the way that this guy can. If you talk to even a typical Republican or conservative, like if you talk to them, they're not going to be able to articulate their values and their vision in the way that this can. If you talk to a typical communist or socialist, they absolutely can do this. And so maybe this is just like a phenomenon of like, people on the radical end of any spectrum are on the radical end of that spectrum because they've thought through a series of questions, probably over the course of years, that have led them to arrive to a certain set of conclusions about the world that they want to live in. And it's not arbitrary, and it's not because of mental illness, and it's not because they're horrible, hateful people, and it's not because of any of these things. It's like, on both the left and the right, on the extreme ends of the spectrum, it's like they've actually spent time thinking about this. And I don't know, I just think that that's important to note. It's not, these ideas don't come because someone was like radicalized, or someone, went to a bookstore and read the wrong book, or God forbid they went on to BitChute and watched a BitChute video. Like, that's not what happens. It's like these people come to these conclusions over the course of years.
Like, when I first retired from fighting, there was like a year COVID hit, wasn't working. I was least happy I've been. I had no purpose, no goal. A man is not meant to sit around and be idle. You're taken away from your community because the government told me that I can't go see my friends, trying to tell you to put masks on your face. It's like I feel like intentionally, that's what got me into politics. Like, the government radicalized me when you're like, wow, they're telling me you can't see your friends, you can't work, you can't do nothing, you have no purpose. You get this hole inside you. Men, we need something to work towards. We need, men, if you're struggling, you obviously don't want people that are, find these communities, be part of a community. You'll get so much better when you have a brotherhood around you, working together. It's so much easier to kick the drug addiction if you have friends around you who are also sober, also being like, hey, maybe you don't need that drink. Like positive encouragement, like, I think it's like, my friends, I'm not going to like shame them if they fuck up occasionally, but it's like, oh, let's just try to be better together.
Right. Yeah. And it's not just about ancestry in our association. It's also about values. So we don't just screen based on, are you white or not?
Yeah.
We're looking for people that we want in our community.
Yeah, you have to be very careful who you bring in. I was asking you a question, like, what are the criteria? Like, how strict are you? Methylene blue has been used for over 100 years.
Sorry, Jake. No ad, no promo.
That's not going to work with us. You have to have respect for monogamy, traditional European values. You have to believe in some kind of pursuit of excellence. We don't have real strict aesthetic criteria yet for how you build and how you develop, but we do want to move in that direction. There's a lack of beauty in public spaces.
Have people working towards being better people, at least.
Yes. Yeah. Have that ambition, which so many people, they have none of that. They get off work and they go home and they drink and they play video games, and there's no sense of building towards anything larger. So we do believe in that kind of constant pursuit of excellence.
Yeah. Well, for me, if I was doing land, I would want people that are giving back to the community, especially if it's not real big. You'd probably want people doing stuff together, working together, trying to make the land better together, not just coming in, getting hammered, yelling at their wife. You wouldn't want that.
Right.
You don't want that kind of community because, I've grown up in poor white neighborhoods in areas. There's some bad white areas. So it's not just race. You know, I've seen the opposite end on the welfare. They're on drugs. Their kids can't eat. So I've seen it from that side too. The Indian reservations, like I said, they have their ethno state, but those are pretty rough. So you could still have a white area that's not good. So you need to push values too.
Yeah, we really have to rebuild our society essentially from the ground up. With diversity, we've forgotten how to interact with each other because different cultures have different implicit languages that dictate how we get along. You know, how close do I stand to you? Do I shake your hand? Do I give you a hug? Like, there's all this stuff that's been broken down because there are people from all around the world in your communities. No one knows how to get along anymore. And even between whites, there's a breakdown of that common cultural language. We don't understand a common etiquette. So once that's gone, there's really no choice but to think carefully about how we rebuild it. And for us, that really looks like a form of case law where things come up in the community, we think about it, we reflect on it, and then if it's something that needs to be acted upon, we change our articles and update it. So just like, you know, American law was built up over centuries of case law, we have to do the same thing and learn a lot of these lessons, but from a starting point where we respect the right of collectives to have their autonomy. We're not individualists. We're part of collective. We can't lose sight of that.
Yeah, because I think America is built on individualism, but it's also built on helping. I think we kind of forget that. So it's like, I think individual is great. You want to first look out for yourself, but then you want to help those around you. You do have to help yourself first, though, because if you're a disaster, you can't do anything. So get yourself together, but then you start helping the community around you. And I think that's so important and something we've lost. And we can everyone kind of see America's on the decline.
Right. And if more ethnicities within America operated that way and looked out for themselves, America as a whole would be stronger. You know, if we're looking after the poor indiscriminately, well, the poor don't live next to you. You know, the person in your community lives next to you. Look after that guy because you're going to see him every day. You can actually influence his life for the better. You're not just going to send him a check and call it a day, you know? So I think this is how we make America strong. We have to rebuild from the foundation, from the neighborhood level. And I think the government actually can benefit. I think our foreign policy even can benefit by pushing the right of communities to have their own autonomy, ethnic groups to have their own autonomy. Well, now we can be a force for good in the world, but there has to be a major shift in the way we think of freedom, away from this individualist freedom towards the freedom of peoples.
No, I definitely agree. I spent like 20 years in San Francisco, and I was close to a big Chinese community, close to a big Afghan community. They gave each other, the Chinese gave themselves discounts. They helped each other out with things. They did this. Same with the Afghans. Like, I was treated pretty good because I was friends with them at both of them, but they clearly would give a random Chinese person a discount. They wouldn't give a random white person a discount. It's literally, I'd see them come in and ask for a Chinese discount or an Afghan discount, and they would do that. Like, so I was friends with people, I think, because I fought and stuff. So I would still get treated maybe with a little extra, you know, privilege over. I was high status, but regular white people, oh, you're not getting treated the same way.
Right.
So I saw that with my own eyes, and that was one of those things I was seeing. I'm like, wow, this is interesting. You would never walk in and be like, hey, can I get 20% off because I'm white? But they would literally seen that multiple times with my own eyes. That's just so crazy.
And that's another moral reason why we really should be doing things like this, because other groups are working together. Are you going to leave
really
your kids just to work for themselves when everyone else is teaming up?
No. And I wasn't angry at the Afghans and Chinese when I saw that. I was more angry at the white people. Like, being like, wow, this guy just walked in and asked for 20% Chinese discount. And the guy's like, yeah, and just gave it to him. And you're like, I can imagine walking into a store and being like, hey, can I get 20% off this because I'm white? They'd be like, what the fuck? It just shows you how much they help. And the Afghans, they're always doing stuff for each other and working with each other. And like,
yeah, that's all very
so
true.
Again, I think these are good people. So I'm not saying they're bad people. So we might not be, I have no idea your opinion, but it's not like they're bad people, but just shows how much they're working together while we're not.
Right. We have to have a major reorientation of our values. And that's partly education. So we have to homeschool our kids more often. We have to grow our traditions from the ground up.
True.
It's not an easy thing. There's no, simple trick where we get our guy in office and then the entire culture just changes. We could have the perfect person as the president and he still couldn't actually change the country.
That's to understand. The president, even if we have a great president, we have to change our whole community. And homeschooling is a big one, man. And things are so expensive. I feel bad because most people aren't able on a single income to be able to homeschool their kid. They have to send them to these daycares. Your kids getting raised by the from the age of like 1 when they should be with their mother, getting sent away. But it's not people's fault. It's the stuff has gone so expensive.
Right. And communities can help with that.
But communities could help a lot. They could help with the kids. A couple of kids together, like, oh, this person watched them that day. This is exactly those are things that help.
homeschooling co-ops. We can have farming co-ops where we have good food at a cheap price. You know, right now you go to the grocery store, beef is $5 a pound or more, and it's full of hormones. You know, we need healthy food, quality education, quality housing at lower prices, and communities can do that. It's going to take some work, and there'll be a lot of lessons learned in the process. But it's just that day-to-day struggle that we have no choice but to engage in it.
You know, I think building community, like, it answers a lot of those questions. You know, the homeschool, you can help do that. You can grow your own food because the prices are expensive, but it's not really the healthiest probably when you're sending a 1-year-old to daycare. I don't think it's healthiest for the kids, but that's like the norm. That's became the norm on our side. Just take your kid and here, daycare is going to raise them.
The Muslim Brotherhood rose to prominence because they provided an alternative to the state. They provided social services. We can have our own health insurance. We can have our own education, our own food supply. We have to become autonomous and do what the state is not doing until we grow enough power where the state will have to see what we're doing, acknowledge it, and be influenced by it. And it really only takes a concentrated population to have real political influence. Like that Jewish community, I think in New York, Curious Joel, politicians want to court that vote because they vote as this huge block. You know, so there's real political power and economic benefits. It just takes work. And that's why people don't want to immediately do it.
100% can. I think guys like you can, guys like Patriot Front, it doesn't take a lot. Like, and even on the political end, you can change it. Like, you know, like you watch, you know, me, Dems, and a dozen other guys maybe on Twitter completely shifted the whole media machine that was behind Israel, completely turned them against them. You know, thousands of other people too that weren't named, but it just showed you a few people can completely shift the narrative.
Right.
Like they don't control information anymore. Now it's time to get off just internet. I mean, that's important too. Information wars are massive as well, but it's time to go out and start building things. And I think it's, you know, I really appreciate guys like you. You know, I'm not trying to join that white organization. I think it's really important we have these out there.
Who knows?
You know, I don't want to see my race dying.
Right. Yeah. And we don't all have to be in each other's organizations, but there's no reason all these different projects can't all collaborate with an end in sight of the well-being of our whole race and ultimately mankind, you know?
You know, I think cooperation among these groups is really important. We're gonna have that conversation at different times, so we'll save this for right now. But I think it's important. But I want to go to religion real quick. I think it's really interesting. You said pagan, Christian type. I know my employee is agnostic. Someone said you might be agnostic. On the you don't have to ask me to want. Someone said you might be agnostic.
No, it's the Gnostic cult.
I'm a Platonist and a Christian. So the Gnostics kind of took some ideas from the Platonists and twisted them a little bit. The whole Gnostic idea is that the creator of the world, the demiurge, is like the bad god. The true God is beyond the demiurge, and that's who we should be worshiping. So Jesus came.
We know who worships the bad God.
Well, that's what many Gnostics believe. So I think there's maybe something to that, but I'm more an old school Platonist, as many of the church fathers were as well.
What was a Platonist again? If there was a God?
Well, yeah, the Platonist view is that there is a higher God, the one, and then the demiurge, the direct creator of the world, is still benevolent and good. Okay. So a Platonist view of who Yahweh may have been in some of the more nefarious deeds recorded in the Old Testament, maybe a malevolent spirit or something like that. But no, religiously, I think there's a lot of unity between the Christian and pagan sides of our heritage because of this shared philosophical tradition. Obviously, Plato was a pagan, but also the church fathers were Platonists. You know, there's one kind of core metaphysical system of thought that goes back many thousands of years, even beyond Plato. Plato didn't claim to invent his philosophy. He took a lot of it from Pythagoras. Pythagoras didn't invent his. He took it from ancient mystery schools, which had been already going for millennia at that point.
Dragon Balls! It seems like the main difference between the far left and the far right collectives is one wants to be left alone to their ideals, while the other wants to overthrow the government. Yet seems far right is attacked most by average conservatives. Yeah, isn't that funny? Isn't that funny? Isn't that funny? I completely agree. Listen, I don't agree with many things that Eric believes. I just don't. But I'm going to spend more time talking about the left than I'm going to talk about our disagreements. And I actually think overall, like, I also agree with him on some things. So, like, why would I attack to my right? Like, unless the person I'm attacking is bothering me or causing me problems in some way, it makes no sense to attack them. It's kind of the same reason why, like, I'm never going to get into a fight about the race issue with the people in the CQ spaces, because I honestly just don't care. It's like they're allowed to believe what they want. I mean, maybe I agree with them on some things, maybe I disagree with them on some things, but like, I just don't care. They're not actually the right is not the problem. The left is the fucking problem. And so, like, when all these conservatives and all these Republicans and all these classical liberals, whatever, that pretend to be on the right but never were, they spend all their time attacking people like him or people like Jake Shields or people like the woke right or any of these things. I'm like, what the fuck are you even doing? James Lindsay stopped talking about the left entirely to spend all of his time attacking the woke right. And it's like, bro, you literally just made this up to talk about people who don't support Israel because you're getting totally bent over and fucked by Benjamin Netanyahu. And it makes no sense. It makes no sense. What is the right's motivation for not being truthful about the left? I don't know, bro. Ask them. Are they not interested in defeating them, or are they just dumb? I think that they're dumb. I think that they believe their own propaganda. I think that, what I found is many people on the right don't actually know what primary source evidence is. And this is bizarre to me. And maybe it's just because, like, listen, I do have a PhD. I was in academia for a long time. I've had to write countless research papers. I understand what primary source evidence is because it was drilled into me in academia that the only type of evidence you're allowed to use is primary source evidence, especially when you get into like the higher levels, your master's degree, your doctorate. You might be able to get away with using secondary sources as like an undergraduate. When you get into master's programs and doctoral programs, you no longer can get away with using secondary sources. You will not pass the class if you do that. And so I understand what primary sources are because I had it drilled into me in higher education. And I think one of the things that was so shocking to me when I first started interacting with dissident right-wingers, specifically on the topic of what the left believes, they have no clue what a primary source even is. They don't know the difference between a primary source and a piece of propaganda that they create. They really don't. And I didn't understand this at first. I kept asking them. I was like, do you have primary sources? Do you have primary sources? Do you have primary sources? And they would send me some piece of propaganda that they photoshopped together. And they're like, here, look at this. And I'm like, yeah, that's real nice. That's not what I asked for, though. I asked for a primary source, and they could not wrap their head around it. And I feel like I've had to explain to them so many times, like, no, we're looking at information directly from the source, not a Word document that you put together with all sorts of your favorite quotes. I'm not looking at an image where you photograph the Stars of David over them to denote all the Jewish people. That's not what we're talking about. I'm talking about evidence directly from the source, and they can't handle it. And then you tell them no, and then they go, you're a woman, get back in the kitchen, because they all hate women and they don't want to hear about it from me. And I'm like, okay, you retards literally don't even know what a primary source is. Yeah, they think libs of TikTok are a primary source. And then they go, get back in the kitchen and make me a sandwich. And it's like, okay, fuck off. Yeah, Spartan over on Rumble says primary source is supposed to be covered in high school. Yeah, you would think, but no, it is not. It is not, in fact, covered in high school.
I think there's deep wisdom that we haven't reached the bottom of.
Yeah.
And so I believe in that historical study and being open to the different aspects of European faith, because ultimately I have humility enough to say, I don't know that ultimate truth in its totality. I'm going to keep pursuing it, though, which is why I think religious tolerance is just good for all
I'm
of
the same
us.
with you. I'm not part of an organized religion. I definitely believe in God. I'm trying to figure it all out. But I've been noticing a rise in paganism.
For example, the Sky News hit piece that we watched earlier in this video about Eric's intentional community, that is not a primary source. The Sky News hit piece is a secondary source that is a narrative interpretation, basically a piece of propaganda. So if we're looking at anything like on like news YouTube channels or even just like something aired on MSNBC or anything like that that's by the mainstream media, that is not a primary source. This video is not a primary source. This video is a secondary source because it's another person interpreting what is going on in this community. And so the reason we watch this for context, but then we listen to Eric's actual words. We listen to Eric in the long form. We're watching like his actual statements. So Eric's statements on Twitter where he's like, here's what's going on and here's what I believe, that is a primary source. Reporting on his statements are secondary sources. It's someone else's interpretation. So this is why I'm so insistent on primary sources. It's like, I don't need anyone else's interpretation. I don't need Sky News's interpretation. I literally just want to know what's going on. And I want to know what they believe and what they think and what they're trying to do. I don't need someone going, this is immoral and wrong and totally racist, bro. I mean, that's just not productive. And it's also not productive. And I understand people on the right like to do this where they take lists of like influential people and they post Jewish stars on them to say, look at all the Jews in government or look at all the Jews in Hollywood. Okay, I understand the point that you're making, but can you give me a more like, what is the context? Because you're making it seem like the only people who have jobs in government or the only people who have jobs in Hollywood are Jewish. When I bet, in fact, if I looked at the whole spectrum of executives in Hollywood, would there be many Jewish people? Yeah, sure. Would there also be many non-Jewish people? Yeah, probably. But we're leaving the non-Jewish people off the list because it's a stronger argument if you say, look at all these Jews working in Hollywood. Well, what's the broader context of this? And how are you deciding who's on the list and who's not on the list about all the executives in Hollywood? Because there are hundreds, thousands of executives in Hollywood. Anyway. This video is almost done, guys. We're starting to wrap up. I appreciate everyone coming out today. We're going to watch the rest of this interview, and I am going live again at 9 p.m., so I do need to wrap it up rather shortly to get some dinner, but I appreciate everyone here. Make sure you mount the like button for me and subscribe and come back tomorrow. Adam Green will be on the channel at 5 p.m. tomorrow, and then we're going inside a live leftist organizing call at 8 p.m. tomorrow. So that's what we got on the agenda.
Which I don't really know much about paganism. I've just met a bunch of pagans recently. I find that really interesting.
You know, it is. And there's a revival of a lot of these customs that our people used to practice. And I have an interest in it as well. I do think the moral teachings of Jesus are inseparable from the fate of European civilization. I think they can't be totally rejected. I think it's part of our story. Paganism is part of our story. Christianity is part of our story. The people who get in these dialectics where they just one camp wars against the other, it's not building towards our greater success. We have to recognize all of these things are part of who we are. The different organizations out there, it's part of who we are as a people. And we don't need total unity, but we need to be able to look across the table, talk to each other, and start working towards productive goals.
No, I agree, and that's why I never really bashed religion, including Islam and Judaism, even, and not often, at least a few times. But it's like I try to not go straight after the religion because it seems to me like you're attacking someone's core beliefs. Instead, let's see where we can find common ground. Like the Muslims, for example, they love and adore Jesus, so it's like really you have more common ground. Like I need to do a little research into paganism, but I just noticed a lot of people talking about now, which is that was like. We're long before Christianity, right?
Well, sure. Yeah, of course it was. And paganism is basically just non-Abrahamic religion. It's all peoples all around the world had animistic views. They had views that gods were in all things, higher forces. And I think there's one underlying truth of the nature of reality that all these people around the world were tapping into imperfectly. And I think even the Christian revelation is an imperfect insight into that one truth. But in order to get closer to that one truth, we do have to have tolerance for one another's views. And we should all recognize we're probably, as individuals, wrong about far more than we realize, even now.
Yeah. There's also one God that lots of people all around the world would sacrifice children to. I think it's like who is that? Moloch one place. I forget what they called them, the Aztecs. But all around the world, they're sacrificing children to this demon god.
Right.
I mean, maybe it's random, but it seems a little weird to me that everywhere has the same thing. It always wants virgins and children, and a little bit disturbing to think about. But
yeah, no, I think there are real higher forces. I think some of them are benevolent, some of them are malevolent, and you shouldn't take that stuff lightly. Which is why I wouldn't experiment
with a bunch of different religious traditions, like many modern New Agers do, like it's without consequence. No, there are major consequences in this stuff. So we take it seriously, treat it in a scholarly way.
He also doesn't understand New Age. I'm just saying, anyone who calls it New Age doesn't actually understand what it is, because New Age beliefs are older than the Christian Bible by like thousands of years. So now we know that not only does Eric not understand the left in any way, shape, or form, he also doesn't understand what New Age is, because literally the only people who even call it New Age are people who have no fucking clue what they're talking about. It's not new. It's thousands of years older than Christ.
You know,
I don't really want to get into drugs that much, but like DMT and ayahuasca,
yeah,
it's opening a portal. I think people aren't.
It
really
is
aware
opening
of
a portal.
Oh,
It
just
is.
take this
It
drug
is,
for fun.
and it's a
like
great
you're
portal,
opening,
and it's a necessary
you know, I remember
portal.
experimenting with some drugs
Yes,
and stuff. Oh, you're hallucinating when you mess
they're
around
not
with that.
drugs. They're
I think you're like
plants.
getting opened up to like a real world that's right there. It didn't feel like
Ayahuasca is a plant and a vine. It was put here by God. Like, what do you want? You cannot claim belief in God and then say this one plant that God grew, that plant is the evil devil plant. It's the same with weed. It's like, it is a fucking plant.
no hallucination. That's why some people get a little dingy after they get these things. People they'll call them like machine elves, but machine elf, demon angel.
No,
so sometimes
that
these machine
doesn't
elves are
happen.
evil, sometimes they're good. It's like I don't know.
That
It seems
literally
a little,
does not. Yo,
feels like something might be out there. Maybe it's some.
Jake Shields is literally making shit up. I have done ayahuasca on like half a dozen occasions. Jake Shields is literally making shit up. No one's calling any sort of demon fucking angel on ayahuasca. I have been in ayahuasca ceremonies with like other people, multiple. Anytime you do ayahuasca, you're doing it around other people. You see how other people react to it. It is actually a spiritual ceremony. There's a shaman and all this shit. And there is no universe in which people are summoning a demon angel on ayahuasca. That's not happening.
Crazy drug experience, maybe not. I don't know.
Well, I mean, thousands of generations of our ancestors developed a science as to how one would approach those spirits.
Exactly.
Shamans over tens of thousands of years in Siberia learned how to use some of these substances to approach specific kinds of beings in specific states of minds after going through specific preparation. So it's set and setting, but it goes
very
far.
serious.
That is actually true.
It's a serious.
That is actually true. If you do ayahuasca, you have to take it as a serious spiritual endeavor. Anytime I've done ayahuasca, I literally have like 2 weeks worth of preparation that I do where I have to eat a certain way. And you're also, if you're really, do you guys know, fun fact, if you're really like if you're doing the hard work of preparing to do ayahuasca, you don't have an orgasm for 2 weeks leading up to it. Like, for real though. That's actually a thing, because the sexual energy is so strong that it can overpower the other energy that you're bringing in with ayahuasca. So part of like preparation to do it is no alcohol, no drugs. You're eating as clean as possible, as organic as possible, as close to vegan as possible. You don't have to be totally vegan, but if you're going to eat meat, it has to be like organic and like all sorts of natural stuff. And you don't orgasm for at least a couple weeks leading up to it. That's the rule.
Business of what for the seriousness, I think people have no idea what they're doing. Like they're unlocking some demons, or who knows what they're unlocking.
Yeah,
some people
have
help. Some people think it helps though, and some people it destroys.
Yeah, some people have permanent schizophrenic breaks as a result. So
no, they don't.
I say
That's
leave it
true.
to the shamans. Ordinary people should not be experimenting with.
There's a lot of bad
Wrong.
shamans too now, because it's gotten so popular.
I wish I hadn't watched this part of the interview.
Bad at people. So I'll do a little research and do that into your shaman too.
Right. Yeah, I don't mean the modern notion of shaman. I mean serious people, wise men.
No, that's some very serious stuff people just be playing around with. A couple more questions, we'll wrap up. Like, how do you feel about like international policy? I mean, it's not really connected to your land, but like international policy, like all the war.
Did I ever throw up or have diarrhea? I've never purged on ayahuasca, and this might sound weird. I have wanted to purge on ayahuasca, but it's never happened. I like and maybe like a teeny tiny little bit of diarrhea, but like not honestly that much, not compared to some. I like and I've been actually, I was so upset about it because like I actually wanted to have that experience and I never got it. So no, I've never purged doing ayahuasca, and not everyone does, to be quite honest, but some people do. Some people are throwing up all night, and it really just depends. Some people, most people that I've been around doing ayahuasca with, most people basically, so what it is you're in basically a room of people where you all have different beds on the floor. And so you basically just like lay down in your bed and you meditate and you kind of zone out, and you have a bucket right next to the bed because some people need the bucket right next to the bed, and you have like Kleenex and stuff like that. And they're playing lovely music and they take care of you if you're getting sick. You can get up and walk around, go outside, do other stuff like that. But no, I've never purged, and I always wanted to, and I never did.
And you think America should be trying to be world police or more isolationist? Or
I'm very in favor of American influence because I think we're the most benevolent influence the world has ever seen.
Yes, I did go to Peru the first time I did ayahuasca, and I will be showing my pictures from Peru at 9 p.m. tonight because Jennifer and I are talking about Machu Picchu. So yeah, so I actually did. The first time I did ayahuasca was in Peru.
We are a world empire implicitly, and we're the most hands-off world empire there's been. But we're spreading this kind of pernicious cultural influence, which stems from our self-hate. And so we're spreading these anti-natal, anti-like heteronormative views around the world. And it's not even empowering us geopolitically. Like if we're going to go to Afghanistan and say you have to teach your daughters math and like say that LGBT stuff is good, they're going to reject. They're all going to unify against you. Whereas if you go,
okay, I'm done. I'm done. Also, that's also not correct, Eric. Okay, Eric has a lot that he needs to learn about the left, but I do appreciate what he's doing with this, with his intentional community, and I appreciate it because he's actually at least just trying to do something. So that's good. Anyway, guys, it's 8:30. I have to take a break because I'm going to be streaming at 9 p.m. We're actually going to be talking about, I just told people, like, so if you actually want to see my pictures from Peru, you can come to the channel in about half an hour because we're going to be talking about, I have my Facebook pulled up and everything. We're going to be talking about the time I went to Peru, and we're going to be talking about Machu Picchu and all that stuff. And you can actually, I'm going to go through my Facebook pictures. This is me, this is going through the Amazon jungle, getting to, that's actually the kind of like entryway of Machu Picchu. So if you want to see some of my pictures from Peru and talk about big stone structures, because that's what we're doing, you can come back in about half an hour. We'll be doing that on Dis and Rage. If you don't want to do that, I will be chatting with Adam Green tomorrow at 5 p.m. trying to fix it. There he goes. And so you can come back for that. And we'll be doing a live leftist infiltration tomorrow around 7:30, 8 p.m. We're going inside a DSA call. And so you can come back and do that if you want. Thank you guys for hanging out. I appreciate it. And I will see you soon.
How are you feeling? How long have you been here? 3 months, May 17th. And what brought you? That's difficult to answer. I'm not clear. How is it that playing the piano for people has eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital?
That's difficult to answer.